Hey, welcome to On the Rocks. I'm Jamie Wilson. We've got a great show tonight. I'm very excited to be hanging out and talking to this amazing guest. And hey, before we get to that, it's the first year anniversary of our lockdown. This pandemic's been around. There are more variants of the virus out there. Um, you know, silently moving around and trying to get into our system. So please, I just want to remind everybody to please stay safe and stay strong and make sure if you don't have to go out, don't go out. Just stay home and make sure that you're in good health. Make sure that, since alcohol kills germs, make sure you're drinking a lot of alcohol. And speaking of which, it is St. Patrick's Day. And of course, it's a worldwide celebration, which is primarily celebrated by drinking a lot of alcohol. And this particular alcohol, I'm very, very thankful for from our friends from Liquor.PH. Jameson. Jameson Irish Whiskey is now joining us for St. Patrick's Day. All March long, Liquor.PH has the best prices for Jameson with special gift spot to boot. Whenever you pick up a bottle of Jameson Original or Jameson Black Barrel, not only do you get a limited edition St. Patrick's Day swag, you also get the best prices out there. Every order of Jameson Original comes in a free limited edition Philippines box designed by Jap Mikel. And they're also offering up the Jameson 18 for the low price of just 5,499 pesos. They've got some great deals. Check them out at Liquor.PH. I'd like to thank also Buenos Panaderia for always sending me boxes of happiness with their Milo buns. Really, I can't get enough. I can't get enough of your love, Buenos Dias. And of course, the perfect pairing for that is some premium Cordillera Gold coffee from Misty Mountain Cafe. So thank you, Nino Mendoza, for always making sure that I am caffeinated enough to get through my day. So yeah, it's been a crazy couple of weeks, especially now that we are now under a new set of guidelines. We've got curfews happening. We've got liquor bans happening. Not in my household. But so a lot of things are changing once again out there. So make sure you're keeping yourself safe if you do have to go out. And at the same time, if you're staying at home, make sure to reach out to people. Make sure you're listening to good music. Make sure you're staying in touch with your loved ones, because it's really one of the most important things that, having gone through one whole year of this, it's really important that you also take care of your mental health, your spiritual health, your emotional health. It's quite important. And like they said, alcohol kills germs. So cheers. Here's to more alcohol. All right. So for tonight's guest, this guy has been, a very prolific writer. He is a music lover to a degree that I can only, envy. This man has managed bands. He has worked as a record executive. He has written amazing articles on a whole range of topics. But I prefer his music articles, definitely, because it's coming from a place of not only knowledge but of deep love. I mean, this man's he has more musical knowledge in his pinky than I do in my entire body. And I'm very excited to have him on the show tonight, because we're going to be talking about the evolution of the Philippine music scene. And we're going to be figuring out, where to go next from where we are right now. So one of my favorite people, a newfound friend as well. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Rick Olivares.
Hey. Good evening, Jamie. Good evening, everyone.
Hey.
Thanks for having me. Wow, what an intro. Now I'm nervous.
Oh, don't be nervous, man. I say everything in truth, and really, from our very first Zoom meetings where, we're talking about, records and LPs. I mean, just guys, whoever's watching out there, look behind Rick. That is just like, a very, very small percentage of his collection. And you know what amazes me about, our Zoom meetings, Rick, when we're discussing records, I have seen you actually pluck a record out from behind you without looking and pull out a record, and it's the exact record that you're looking for. So that's not just a collection for show. You know exactly what you have and where it is. And that's amazing.
Thank you. But what? Since I was a kid, I've been collecting. I kind of stopped in the '90s. I would still buy records every now and then, particularly punk records, punk rock records, hardcore records, the occasional ska, but mostly CDs. And I only came back to vinyl in the last 5, 6 years, and
Wow.
picked up where I left off. But there's a story why I left. I stopped vinyl. There's a story about that. Ayun. So yeah, music is something I grew into as a kid,
Hmm.
because I was in a house that was filled with music. My father was the president of the Philippine Association of the Record Industry, and
Fantastic.
before that, he was the president of Disc Corporation, and they were the exclusive distributors of Casablanca Records. That's Kiss, The Village People, Donna Summer, Terry Desario, this prog rock band Angel. They also had Casey and Sunshine Band with that other label, diba? So, and then when he became president of Bari, that was something even bigger, because now he was like, ayoko namang tawagin ng boss ng industriya, but he was right on top there.
Yeah.
And it was, what was cool about that was, I'd wake up on a Saturday morning, I'd see Pepe Smith and Mike Hanapol in our sala talking to my dad. Or one time, Gary and Angeli Valenciano came over to the house, and the phone would ring, and it's Jaja Padilla. Like, we're going out to the family reunion party on a New Year's Eve, and then it's Florante outside, knocking on the gate. And yeah, I grew up a metal kid, the metal of the '70s. That's
Okay.
the metal and hard rock of the '70s. That's Led Zepp. Kiss was my first favorite, and
Yeah.
but my dad would take me to the Manila Hotel to watch the New Minstrels. I got to watch the Juan de la Cruz band in Gapo, and at the time, I didn't know the magnitude of it. I did not. All I know,
How old were you when this was all happening?
wow, 7, 8 years old,
Wow.
9 years old, and because my dad had this massive collection of about 20,000 records, and he got all the freebies because he's the president. So
Yeah.
they send all the OPM stuff. So we had everything back then, So it was
And
really fun.
you probably got the releases of these records before it was even out and available to the public.
Hindi naman siguro, but there were times, yes, but for the most part, he'd just wait for, let's say, Vicor or Dyna to send him the stuff, and then he'd bring it home. Usually, minsan one copy, minsan two, minsan three, and then if it were the rock bands, like the Juan de la Cruz band, I would get it. But there were times he didn't want to give it to me. He wanted to keep it for himself. So I had to buy my own, like the Juan de la Cruz band's Kahit Anong Mangyari, which I'll show you later. And that was one of my first Pinoy rock records. And so it was massive growing up in that household, seeing all these people in the dining room, in our lunch table, answering the phone, and just hearing them, and I'd poke fun at them. I'd say, I don't believe you're Joshua Padilla. Sige nga, Joshua, kantayin mo nga yung Mambobola. Sige nga, di ba? And then she'll sing a few bars, and then I'm like, oh my God, it's Joshua Padilla.
She's on the phone. She's on the phone.
And it was fun because my mom was also taking up the repertory workshop, and I got to see Monique. Monique was teaching them, and I think I met you sometime after that. But we did not reconnect until decades later, man. But
yeah,
it was fun. It was fun to be connected to the arts, and to see a lot of it. And eto pa, Jamie, Jingle Magazine was like their offices in Cubao. It was like a 3-minute walk away.
Wow.
Club Dread EDSA was a 15-minute walk away. Dude, I'm in Rock and Roll Central. Something like that, diba? And then Farmer's Market, nandiyan yung Camela, and all these shops that sold Twisted Red Cross tapes.
Yes.
Cowboy Grill was just around the corner, and Coco Jam would be playing there. Spy would be playing there. Man, it was so much fun. So much fun as a kid growing up, and being exposed to a lot of this. So, even stuff like Sinatra, which my dad would play a lot, I secretly liked it. I couldn't tell my classmates because I was in grade 6 when the B-52s came out, and we were all into the B-52s, and most cats were into Earth, Wind, and Fire and Spyro Gyra, and we were into New Wave, and we were just laughing at everyone like, oh, they're listening to jazz. But don't get me wrong, I love jazz. It's just that you're young and you're a punk. You
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
know.
It's funny. Like I grew up also in a household where the only music was playing was either Broadway tunes or Frank Sinatra or Bill Eckstein or Sarah Vaughan. So it's
Mm,
something that I always equated to as my father's music. Although I see, like you said, also I secretly liked it, but I couldn't tell my barcada that I liked it because we were listening to Styx, to Rat, to Bon Jovi, and I'm like, oh, that's not cool if I bust out the Frank Sinatra,
most
record. But
definitely.
it's funny that our fathers have influenced our musical tastes, and you growing up in this environment, which continued through the years from your childhood to the Club Dread days, like you were saying, the Cowboy Grill days, and all that. When did you lock into your own personal musical taste? Growing up to all these, with all these artists being in your living room and listening to all these records coming on. When did you lock on and say, "This is mine. This is for me"?
Okay, I'm gonna be honest, huh? The moment my mom banned me from listening to rock music. Seriously, my mom's a devout Catholic as I am, and but my mom always thought that rock and roll was the devil's music, and of course I disagreed with it. Well, I was fascinated by the macabre part of it, but I
Mhm.
was afraid. I was afraid. I was a kid, but I couldn't listen to my records Zepp or Kiss. I couldn't. If I had to listen to them, I had like a 1 hour time limit, and I had to be wearing headphones.
Oh
And the
wow!
more that I got banned from listening to it, the more I got into it. And I was listening to DZRJ at the time, and they were that was such an amazing time for RJ, and to and I remember when they were playing stuff like the Jerks Romantic Kill, and I was just blown away, and I kept waiting for it to be released, and I'm honored to say that I'm putting that out on vinyl this year, as
Woohoo!
a project with Chikoy Pura, no. Um, but then and I would just listen to RJ, and it was luckily my dad understood rock and roll, and he was the one supplying me with the Kiss records, because that was his
That's
artist.
true.
And then the late Dominic Gamboa, who was a batch ahead of me in Ateneo, and si Doming would. I can't say that we were super super close because we were okay, but Doming was a huge influence. He was the captain of the local Kiss army, and when we'd have meetings, Dominic would just tell us about, gotta listen to this band, gotta check out Thin Lizzy, you gotta check out Todd Rundgren, you gotta check out Bob Marley, you gotta check out Peter Tosh, things like that. So it was amazing. It was amazing. But to your question, the moment my mom banned me, and then I realized that my dad was, after all, they were giving me albums by the Bee Gees, and as much as Saturday Night Fever was all the rage, and I thought at the time disco sucked big time, and I didn't want to listen to disco. So, I mean, I remember they gave me the best of the Bee Gees, and I cried. I said, "What's this? Where's my Led Zepp 3? You know, where's my Thin Lizzy? Where's Kiss?" Diba?
See, that's the thing. That's the thing. When disco became so popular, I remember, going to parties with my older cousins because we're the youngest family of the youngest, sibling of my mom's family. So whenever we'd go out with my older cousins or my titos and my titas, it's always disco dancing, and I hated it because here I was, listening to like the Led Zepp, Styx, all these heavy metal bands. I was listening to Betrayed, and I would have to endure going to these parties. And my only job, I wasn't, at least thank God, I wasn't pressured to dance. So my only job there was to actually make sure that their drinks were refilled after they come back from the dance floor. Pag pagod na, they need a drink, I was their go-to guy. So I had to memorize all the drinks of all my titos and all my cousins na, oh, ito rum coke, ito vodka tonic, ito San Miguel, ito, you know what I mean? That was my job.
But
But
that
I
was
had to,
learning that at an early age, man.
well, yeah, it's the drinking, but then I had to, but I couldn't drink. I wasn't allowed to drink. I had to mix their drinks, but I wasn't allowed to drink. And I had to endure that by listening, you know, like for a 4 hour party or an 8 hour party. Kahit na it's past my bedtime na, they would let me stay up just to make sure that their drinks were filled. And I would have to endure listening to disco, which at the time I hated. I only came to appreciate disco much later on. You know,
Yeah.
much later on. I embraced disco much later on.
I think
But
when we get older, we kind of do that.
yeah, I guess our minds open up. I guess it's not a matter of subscribing to a certain lifestyle anymore. You're appreciating the music
Yeah.
as just the music, because you know in the disco era back then, you know, everybody was wearing all these nice flashy clothes, the big wide collars and all that, and me, I'm always in black. You know, so I'm
I
like,
get you.
you know, I was listening to Generation X before Billy Idol went solo. I was listening to The Cure. I had eyeliner, you know. But I guess once you start looking beyond the lifestyle that a certain genre of music, you know, has influenced you to subscribe to, then your ears start opening up and you realize, wow, you know, ang hirap pala to play disco. I mean, as a musician, some of the
That's right.
best session musicians I've spoken to, they said, ano yung pinakamahirap mo? And it's disco. Disco is the hardest to play.
Yeah.
You know, so
You know,
it's quite interesting that you growing up in that sense. And I did not know Papa Dom was the leader of the Kiss Army.
he was.
That makes so much sense.
Yeah, he was. Well, my dad was the president since Kiss was the label. The local Kiss Army, Papa Dom was the what? It's one and only captain, and we'd have regular meetings. We'd watch. We had a special preview of the Phantom of the Opera. Everyone got their posters, their copy of the Kiss comic book with Kiss blood in the ink.
Wow.
Diba? So it was fun. But you know what, Jamie? It was what changed everything for me was getting into punk rock. And the moment I heard the Ramones, and I didn't hear it on RJ. I don't think they were playing it, the Ramones at the time. I heard the Ramones and I was just totally blown away. I said, what the hell is this? And then just seeing that classic cover of them with the ripped jeans against the wall, that was life changing for me, the Ramones. And then I remember when DZRJ started promoting the best of punk and new wave, the compilation.
Yeah.
And the compilation was only released in Singapore and in the Philippines. And I have a copy of each, the Singaporean and the Philippine version. And when that came out, it was selling for 24 pesos. And my baon was like 20 bucks. 20 bucks. So I had to save. If it meant skipping a meal, I would skip a meal. But I had to save up for that. And that was one of the first records I bought, the best of British punk and new wave. And you know, I think they were testing the waters, how punk rock was gonna be taken here. And then they released the Great Rock and Roll Swindle. And just that blew it up. That blew up the whole scene. And then before you know it, Ocean Zoo comes out with their EP on Insect Dance Records, Animal Party. That sold for $5. $5. Bought it at Musicland at Alley Mall. And you know, and Pink Vinyl. That was just amazing. You know, if you want to talk about indie records, Ocean Zoo, the great Jaxicat, they started it, you know. And I bought it because I heard it on RJ that it was going to be available. And when I bought it in Musicland, there were only 3 copies. I bought one because that's all I could afford. And, you know, like this one, I still have it after years.
Yes.
$100. $100. I got it.
Can you open it? Is it open? It's not sealed. No. Can you open it? Is it still the gray? Is it still? Yes, it's the gray.
This is the original, the DMZ, not the Twisted Red Cross release, no?
Naka-pop ba yung tabs niyan?
Oh, you know.
Yes. So for the young ones in the audience, ladies and gentlemen, that is a cassette tape. That's called a cassette tape. If you've never seen it. But that's what's funny, because now like you're talking about saving up for a record, and I used to go through the same thing. Thankfully, I was working in theater back then, so I would have a little bit money to supplement my allowance.
Mhm.
And I remember the day where I was able to go to. I would go to Unimart, the record bar in Unimart,
Yep, yep.
and they had some really good
Inside the
selections
grocery,
there.
inside the grocery, man.
Yeah, inside the grocery, and they would have really good selections. And I remember this very distinctly, going like I was heavy into the Cure, at that time, and I was trying to complete my collection of their albums. But I was also into collecting comic books.
Mhm.
So it would always, when you have a finite amount of money, you're like, okay, if I buy this album, that means I can't buy this comic book. And I would be there for like half an hour going, which one? What am I gonna do? What am I gonna do? And the thing is, what's funny, what has changed now in terms of how the world is sharing music. It's so readily available. Even if you're a vinyl collector, there are so many online groups
Mhm.
that will have possibly the LP you're looking for,
Yeah,
or the album you're looking for. And it was a constant hunt for
yeah.
all these amazing albums, while as now in terms of streaming,
Mhm.
all you gotta do is search, and
Yeah.
it's available to you.
And if you have the
There's
money to pony up for that one.
Yeah, if you have the money to pony up. But then for streaming, I mean, since YouTube is free, almost everything is on YouTube.
Mm.
So for me, there's a certain lack of connection. Like when you said, when the punk and the British punk, the best of came out, it
Yeah.
was something that hits you because there was a personal journey for you to actually get your hands on that album. There was a
Yeah.
certain sacrifice that you had to make.
Over there.
See, I'm telling you, he's gonna be doing that all night, guys. He's gonna be like plucking out records from his shelves. But it's a
Yeah.
more personal connection back then, which I'm finding it difficult to do so with streaming now.
Oh,
Because
definitely.
with streaming, it's not like you're going to a record store and you're browsing. You have to target your search, and
Yeah.
then now you have to, like, listen to it and see, if I don't like it, it's okay to skip. While
Mm.
as back then, like when you popped that Betrayed cassette in, you played it and that's it. You left it alone.
Yeah.
I would never fast forward it because you didn't know what the album was. It
Yeah.
wasn't a singles oriented culture. It was full on albums. What
Definitely.
what can I ask, Rick? What attracted you specifically to punk rock?
I think that was the age when I was starting to really become a rebel. Um, I wasn't happy with the strict rules at home about what I could listen to, about playing football. And I love football. It's the first sport I played in Ateneo, and I'm supposed to be with the varsity team, but my teammates had to pick me up because my mom wouldn't allow me to attend practice. She'd rather have me concentrate in school. So punk, if metal frightened me in some way, because growing up a strict and devout Catholic, if there was anything left of that one, it frightened the hell out of me. Like the Susie and the Banshees, when I got my first Susie and the Banshees, I was fascinated, but at the same time I was frightened because as a kid and at the time, remember this is pre-internet,
Yeah.
and you don't know what it's all about. It's frightening, it's moody and all that. But that was the age when I started to really rebel. And I remember when I went to Farmers to buy those studs that you'd put around here, and I wore it. Although I looked like a freaking idiot because I was thin. I was thin and I had long hair, and I was wearing black studs over here like that, and I thought I was cool, but I looked like a jerk. But there was something about punk that, um, and it's still one of my favorite genres. And a lot of these are punk rock records over there, um, and it's one of the reasons why I got back into vinyl again after all these years. Punk rock, and there's something about it. The imagery that they use, the themes and the songs that they sing about. There's something about it that's something visceral, something primal that grabs me talaga. I mean, if you were to ask me, I love shoegaze, I love rockabilly, I love reggae and all that, but punk rock has a special place in my heart. And man, to be able to watch all these bands at CBGBs later on, in the States, and uh, that's why I specifically chose New York, because I wanted to be right at the center. If I was in the center of rock and roll in Manila, I had to be in the center of rock and roll, and that's New York City. And there's CBGBs, there's Sign E, but there are all these clubs, and I wanted to go there because I wanted to see the Ramones, and I got to see the Ramones, and I got Marky Ramone's autograph. I got to watch the Misfits. I got the Misfits autograph.
Wow.
I got to ride a subway train with Marky Ramone. That is absolutely cool. And then living in Jersey, I was like a 40-minute drive away from New Brunswick because I was living in Ewing at the time. And I go to New Brunswick because that's where the really cool and up-and-coming bands like Thursday, the Gaslight Anthem, that's where they were all at. And this was before they signed major deals, and just to watch them, and which is why I joined, for like 3-4 years, I followed the Vans Warped Tour religiously. Wherever they play
Wow.
wherever they play in Jersey, wherever they play in Connecticut, I'd go. I would go. And I'd specifically go to the stages of Rancid, because I'm a massive Rancid fan. I'd watch the Tsunami Bomb. Thursday would be there. Even the Mars Volta would be there.
Wow.
I would just follow wherever they'd go. It was insane. The things you do for music, your love for music, diba? And it's a life-changing thing. Going around following the Vans Warped Tour, I was thinking of Almost Famous,
Yes.
a film, and the cool thing, you have several sound stages, so you just choose where you want. And the tough thing is when multiple bands that you like are playing at the same time.
Oh, pag sabay-sabay, ang hirap.
You kind of weigh it, diba? Where do you go? Which do you watch, diba? So you take in a few songs, then run to the next one, diba? But ganun talaga when you love music, and you know that, Jamie, when you love music, the things you do for music,
The
diba?
things you do. It's funny when you were mentioning, so if we could talk about, punk, and you just showed your Betrayed cassette tape and all that. I was into Betrayed. I remember an entire year, actually, where I was listening to nothing but the Dead Kennedys.
Mhm.
And it was that young, rebellious energy that you couldn't, it gave me a certain freedom
Yeah,
and attacked you viscerally and would release that energy, that pent up frustration that you had
definitely.
in a genre of music. Now, when you mentioned Papa Dom, and I'd always wanted to ask him this, but I never had the chance of like how did he transition from punk to reggae? I can't make that connection in my brain. I was just talking to Ellie about this the other night, and I'm like, how did that crossover happen?
I think
You know?
from what I know and what I am told, it just didn't sit well with his health and his heart. Uh, if you recall, after Betrayed, he was with the Scavengers and all that. That's
Oh,
ska, and ska is still a little faster paced. And I think he found it a little hard too. So reggae was more suave na, diba? So you don't need to go, you don't need to mosh.
yes.
You don't need to mosh. And I will never forget every time they played in Dread, and the word is swinging. Swinging. Two guys would go up and they'd just be swaying along. Man, my hair is standing up, and look, I'm getting goosebumps, and I don't see it. Look, I'm getting goosebumps, and
Yeah.
remember it as clear as yesterday. Just to be able to witness that was something. You know, the local music scene. It's always been incredible. I've always been in love with it. I have a massive collection of local stuff.
It's funny with the local music scene back in those days. I remember we there were a lot of tribes in the music scene. You
Oh,
had the punks, you had the rockers, you had, I mean, like the new wavers.
yeah,
And I remember in my adolescence, the first time I remember I had to sneak out of the house. I had to climb out my window, and my friends would pick me up. I had to shimmy down a tree that had barbed wire and all that just to go to the first Ultra Storm.
Um,
concert.
tell me
And I remember we were drinking by the bar and all that. But then that's the first time that I saw all the tribes under one roof. And for a split second, I was terrified because, I was away. I was in my trench coat. I was in my combat boots. I had eyeliner. And then you'd encounter a punk. And then you encounter somebody who is, a gaggle of girls dressed like Madonna and like a virgin outfits and all that. And I was frightened because I was like, oh my God, hindi ko tribe to. May mga, all the tribes are under one roof. And I
yeah,
remember watching, the Dawn that night and After Image that night. And I remember the sense of community that sort of united the tribes because we finally had a concert big enough for all of us to be together.
that's true. More than that, Jamie, no? Talagang back in the day, it wasn't the small rock clubs. They were playing the big venues like Ultra,
Mm.
diba? They'd be playing. I remember the Juan de la Cruz band when they launched their last album, Kahit Ano Mangyari. It was at Ali Mall. Then they had a concert at the Araneta Coliseum. Um, you had massive festivals. Diba? You had the Pinoy Woodstock. Then you had
Yeah.
all these shows. They would fill up places like the Loyola Center in Ateneo. They would, they'd play everywhere. They'd play at the Rizal Memorial. And even the punk rock gigs, you'd draw thousands of people. And nowadays, and you're lucky, you'd probably only see that in an Eraserheads concert
Yeah.
or, or even, a few other bands, no? But
But when the festivals in the 90s started happening again,
oh
like,
yeah,
when you had multiple bands in the same bill, and sometimes they were, ska, reggae, heavy metal, hard rock, where all the tribes also would go again. It was sort of like a learning experience how to behave in a concert, how to enjoy yourself,
yep,
and also how to behave in the concert, which was funny because a lot of, like if you're talking about, we have devout Catholic mothers who denied us rock and roll. My father was the one who thought that this was, the music of the devil, and I shouldn't grow my hair and I shouldn't wear eyeliner because eyeliner is for girls, diba? But it was funny because the authorities did not know what to do with us.
that's
I would always see a huge police presence outside, and they were just like, who are all these freaks going into this show?
tsaka ng time na yun, di ba? Pag punk rocker ka, ang equation sa'yo, satanista. Di ba? The
Yes.
anti-sign.
Yes.
One reason why that's why I'll be honest, I'm not a fan of the British punk movement. I mean, I like the Clash, but you can't really say they're totally punk because they infused a lot of reggae dub
Oo.
and ska in their music. But I wasn't into the nihilistic style of the Sex Pistols. I loved them at first, but no, I gravitated eventually to the New York hardcore scene. But I remember the time, Jamie, my world was growing, and I was getting to prog rock. And one time, I remember one of the jingle writers, Tony Maghirang, and we're friends now. No, he trashed yung Moving Pictures album ng Rush and compared them to the Jerks. Now I love the Jerks. Don't get me wrong, I love the Jerks, but that's apples and oranges. And I took him to task. I replied with a really scathing and sarcastic and nasty letter. In fact, in the jingle film, Tony talks about it and he mentions my name. He said,
I remember that segment.
But then I remember you're talking about tribes, no? And then you could not mix the metal and the punk guys. You could not.
Yeah.
Away.
Awa yun, away.
Fans,
Rumble. Rumble yan, Rumble.
pati yung mga new wave guys, hindi pwede yan. Hindi talaga pwede. Lalo na pag alam ng disco freak ka, di ba? Patay ka pag alam ng disco freak ka.
Gulpe ka nun, gulpe.
Talaga noon. I remember one time, in the letter column of Jingle, sobra talaga yung upakan dun sa, yung verbal, the written word, upakan, no? And then one guy writes in, and he says, all this fighting in the letter call started because of Rick Olivares. Imagine tayo na at that age, rabble-rouser na ako, di ba?
Well, there you go. That's the punk rock spirit right there, man. You can't tell me the album that I love sucks, right? we have a question here. What part does music play in your work or writing process? Do you choose specific music for certain tasks? That's a very good question coming from my wife, Gold Soon. Thank you for always tuning in and asking great questions, Gold.
It is a
But
very,
do you have specific soundtracks for specific tasks?
no, I'm a feel thing. It's a feel thing for me. For everyone who's watching, Jamie's in my writing class, no, and I tell them I never interview someone. I never go into a story with an idea of how I will write the story because I think it's wrong because you might pigeonhole it to the angle that you want when it could be wrong. I always let it take me where it goes. And having said that, it's the same thing with music. It's a feel thing. There are times I can write with heavy metal or death metal playing. Yeah, I listen to death metal. Depends on the mood.
Oh,
There are times I
depending
cannot.
how you depending how you feel on that day, diba?
Yeah, it's a feel thing. No, I don't have anything specifically planned. It's how I feel at the moment. Sometimes I'll try something. Oh, it doesn't work, then I'll switch. No, it could be jazz. It could be hard bop jazz, which I truly love, and it could be punk. It could be ska. The last few days I've been on a reggae dub and a ska trip. No, it's in phases, it's in cycles, but there are times of the month when I play specific records. There are certain records that I play every month. Diba? Like Counting Crows, August and everything after. It's something that I play. I play Exodus a lot, and
Oh,
it's why.
that Counting Crows album, that was a whole year
Yeah.
for me, where that was just played non-stop because it was such a, I mean, as a singer, as a vocalist for me, diba? You always have these structured songs, especially with hard rock, heavy metal. You have the verse and you have the chorus and you have the verse and you have the bridge, but the Counting Crows album was actually quite liberating because this guy sounded like he was, making this up as he went along, and they just happened to catch it on tape.
He
You
sounded like a
know?
generation writer, and
Yes.
I'm heavily influenced by the Beat Generation writers, Jack Kerouac and all that. I absolutely love them, and they are one reasons why I decided to take a cross country drive all over the United States and things like that. No? Oh, si Direk Juno saying Mabuhay Gardens. No, Direk, hindi po ako mabot doon. Hanggang New York lang po. Tsaka Washington po.
Yeah, well, since we're reading comments, let's just do a quick shout out. Boyet Seasons in the house. We've got Alec Pulido. Hi, Alec. Pat Tirano.
Raf
We've
Camo.
got Juno Obanda. Thanks for tuning in, guys.
Hi,
Okay,
Alex.
since the question came up, Rick, about your writing, how did you get into writing? You were talking about the Beat Generation, which I absolutely love these guys. Jack Kerouac. I remember when I read On the Road, I kept
Oh,
on rereading it for 2 years because it seemed like the energy of the book
yeah.
alone
Which
kept
is,
me on the road.
remember
You
in our
know?
class the other day, Jamie, we were talking about where you could be anywhere in this planet. We talked about Paris and
Yeah.
Shakespeare and Company in particular, which was a hangout of Beat Generation writers, and
Yes.
that was like a must-go-to place for me. And but writing. Believe it or not, as a kid, I was an artist. I would draw, I would paint, and I played football. I love comic books, but writing, I never thought it's something that I could do. Um, People would say that, hey, you can write, and I didn't really think of it that way. But I was in third year college, and I was writing for the Philippine Daily Inquirer just to earn extra money, to buy records, to buy comic books, to go out on dates, and I was also working at McDo part time, between classes, so I could, yun nga, pambili ng plaka,
Oh,
um,
oh,
pambili ng comics. Ganun talaga eh. And then, but when I was writing for the Inquirer, I was writing about musicians and bands. I remember I followed the Rizal Underground at the time. They had just released Sabado Nights, and that's where I became friends with Stephen Liu. We've been friends ever since. And I followed them for an entire week. This was Almost Famous before Almost Famous, but obviously the story of Cameron Crowe was back in the 70s, diba? But I didn't know that, diba? I followed them from practices to band meetings to an actual show, and Sabado Nights was just really heating up at the time. And I wrote it. It was a very long article for the Philippine Daily Inquirer, and I remember Stephen saying, this is not for any newspaper. This is like for Spin Magazine or Rolling Stone. And that's how much those magazines really changed. I want I wanted to be like Cameron Crowe.
Yeah.
He's a massive idol of mine, diba? I couldn't be like Lester Bangs because I'm not irreverent like Lester Bangs. I'm not, diba? But I love it.
Ako naman si Lester Bangs ang idol ko.
Pare, hayop yun. Ibang klase utak nun. You have to do another wavelength to get him.
Yes.
Diba? And you know what? I wish I wrote like Lester Bangs. I can't. I can't. If I try it, it's so contrived and it sucks. So I'd rather not try and copy him, diba?
Yeah, it's not our voice. It's his voice is so unique.
Parang Jack Black, no? Jack Black yung wavelength. Iba yun.
Correct.
And Jingle Magazine was man, like I said, I was just like, what, a 3-4 minute walk away from Jingle. Tambayan ko yun after class. And, I got to meet them. Sila Butch Maniego, sila Sir Eli Guillermo. Diba? I got to meet these guys. And, I would buy my copy of the Beatles songbook, which is what, 7 pesos, if I remember it correctly.
Yeah.
I'm dating.
Well, not anymore. Now these are such vintage copies that they're going for like thousands of pesos now, if you can even find them.
I wish I still had my copy. And my mom threw it out when I was in the States, and I called her up. When I come home, I'm gonna burn down your house. Sa galit, no? Tinapon yung mga plaka ko, yung mga Kiss records ko, di ba? Puro imported yun, di ba? And my dad gave me as a graduation gift. He gave me a complete set of Beatles records, all pressed in the UK.
Wow.
And we're talking about 1980s.
Yeah.
So, wow, diba? To lose that, I'm still sore over that. I'm still very sore over that. That's back then you don't realize the value. I mean, wala naman value nung time na yun.
Wala, it was just another record that you thought would be available forever.
Yeah.
Diba?
But
I mean, nobody foresaw the shifting in formats into cassettes and all that. The whole idea of collecting for me back in the day was just antiques. You know what I mean? Like I had uncles who collected antiques, and that's what you could collect.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Definitely.
So you were talking about how Sabado Nights blew up and you wrote. And Stephen Liu, who's also a good friend, I used to watch them, Runaway Boys, and their brand of rockabilly music was actually so unique because it's a genre that, my only exposure that would be similar would be Stray Cats. Yeah. And here you have a good dynamic band with excellent musicians playing music of that genre. It was rock that you could dance to, which I loved. Yeah. I love that fact. And of course, when Sabado Nights blew up, San Miguel picked it up. It became a beer commercial. Yeah. I remember being at that shoot because my ex-girlfriend was the production designer and all that. And I was thinking, wow, is this the era of beer sponsorship? Corporate sponsorship is coming in. Finally, rock and roll is being acknowledged. It's not just underground.
Rock, Pinoy rock, the local alternative scene became the mainstream.
Yes.
You just tune on to TV, the noontime shows, or even the talk shows. You'd see them, even on the talk shows. Mm. And they were on commercials. They were on, like, Colored Red was doing Chippy.
Yes, I remember that. It was so funny when you tune into a noontime show and then you'd see Wolfgang or Razorback, and I'm like, wow, what's going on?
And it was so amazing. Ramdam mo yung eksena nung panahon na yun, di ba? Ngayon, kung wala ka sa eksena ngayon, di mo alam may eksena tayo, di ba? So, correct. Yun yung malungkot, no? But, it's in waves. It happens in waves. So, I guess it's due for that, no? We're due for another big one. And that's really exciting, no? Audrey's saying that Jack Kerouac's her absolute favorite, and yes, Audrey, that's one thing that we have in common. I love Jack Kerouac.
I don't know how many copies of On the Road Like right now, I have 3 copies in my household, but these were not the copies that I first encountered. My first on the road copy of On the Road, man, I read it until it was literally falling apart in my hands. It became a sort of my Bible, and it also urged me to see more of the Philippines, because that's how I could duplicate it. With fantastic writers like that who could make you feel the energy of constant movement, of being open enough to encounter people and make friends along the way. I think that was so important. That's when I started. I fell into the habit, and this was basically because of On the Road. I fell into the habit of kung wala akong ginagawa, if I was in between shows and I had a little money, I would actually make balikan from Manila to Baguio. I would take the Victory Liner, be there for breakfast, spend the day in Baguio, and then come back down. And back then, it took like that was a long bus ride. But just the feeling of what a writer can, can give you, of just being, on the road, for example. And he would be talking about, his travels and the people he encountered. That actually opened me up, because I felt up until that book, I was living in a bubble, and I was very particular about, the people I would let in.
Yeah.
And being on the road, you start talking to, that influenced me into actually getting to know the other people on the bus, or talking to the driver, or
Yeah.
talking to, anybody that you encounter. And it's amazing that this is one of your biggest influences. And when Stephen Lou said that about, Rick, pang Rolling Stone to, pang Spin magazine yun, eh.
Yeah.
Diba? Was that what gave you the impetus to say, hey, I can do this?
No, not yet. Not even. You know, moving moving to the, I'll tell something before the US story.
Okay.
I remember interviewing jazz guitarist Peter White, who played with Basha and Al Stewart. And Peter White came over, and I was working for Universal Records at the time, and I was promoting him and Jim Chappell. This is before I signed Parokya and Edgar to their first professional contract in Datu's tribe. So, and they were amazed that I knew a lot about their career, because Al Stewart came up in the '70s with great songs like "Song on the Radio" and "Time Passages," and that was a different kind of folk music than what we're used to listening to, Lolita Carbon and Asin. And this was British folk music, and him singing of King Arthur and stuff like that. That was just amazing. But I think it's the stories that were told in the songs, no? But that they said, hey, you could write because you understand the history of it, you know our history, and as you said, Jane, it's coming from here. But I remember immediately after 9/11, and I was in California. So I had to go back to New York, and there were no flights, so you had to drive, and there's no GPS. You just have to use a road map. And this was my on the road adventure. You just have a map. You just have my Discman with me to keep me company, and I'm just there driving. There are military checkpoints in every other part of the state, military and police checkpoints, because this is like days after 9/11 and all that. So that was you understand now what the on the road is. You understand it. You see what he was talking about in his travels across America. You see it up front, driving up and down Portland and getting out of Portland, and you just see endless rows of trees and mountains, and there's an endless road, and that got me thinking. And I was writing letters every night to my parents, to my friends, and anyone, like my kids, and telling a story of depression, of loneliness, of you have to forgive me, I'm getting emotional. It was a very difficult time, very, very difficult time. And I was just writing letters, and it's not your typical dear mom, dear dad. I was telling stories of what I was seeing, what I was experiencing. even simple things like walking into a bookstore, I'd tell stories and about people, what I was. And I was writing them, and I didn't know my letters were being circulated, Jamie. I didn't know it. They were
Wow.
circulating my letters, and then Philippine Daily Inquirer, which I used to write for. My aunts wrote for them also. Then they said, "Hey, can you serialize your stories?" And I said, "Hell no." How the hell did you get my my email? You know what? But the reason why it was being shared, they felt that it was an amazing story of finding yourself. Because it was a rotten time for me. My marriage was in disarray. I was about to be jobless because the US was going to hit a recession. Um, you pretty much feel like you fucked up your life. You were on top before, now you're down there. And like, okay, what am I going to do? So, I marched to the recruiting office and I said, okay, I'm at 32 years of age. I'm on my last year of eligibility to join the US Army. The Marines only accept up to 28, 29. So I can't join the Marines anymore. So I said, can you ship me off to Iraq? It's crazy, man. I mean, I wanted to go, but
Yeah.
but not at that state of mind. So I was just writing letters, writing. And then people were saying, this is an amazing story. And we could feel your pain. We could feel every tear, every laugh, every guffaw. And so, people were compiling it. They were compiling it. And this is every day, man. Every day. Every single day. Even going to Mexico and watching luchador wrestling in Guadalajara and write about it, man. So then, well, now the people tell me you should put it in a book. Diba? Then it took me a while to agree to it because it's such an intensely personal story, and I intend to publish it this year. No? But sold in very limited quantities and only to people I know. Because I can't sell it to someone I don't know because I'm sharing a story that's painful. It's very painful. About a very difficult. It's about a 2.5 year period of my life where I was, but I felt reborn after that. No, but that whole adventure of being on the road, you do a lot of thinking and reflecting on why your life's been fucked up and all that. About why where are you going? What are you doing? What's wrong with you? And looking back at it now, it's probably the best thing that ever happened to me because it shaped me to the person I am today. And because of writing those letters, and I didn't realize that I could connect with people. And it reminded me of what Stephen was saying all those years ago. That Stephen was saying, you have a gift that you can write this way. Your style is not the usual style. Um, go and pursue it. And I remember him saying that. And one of the guys who was pushing me early on back then was Bing Austria. I met Bing during his time in tropical depression, and then later on with Putraska. And Bing would always push me back then, and Bing would listen to my stories, and God bless him. I couldn't say even unlike today, I'm better friends with Bing. But Bing back then was saying, Rick, go, you gotta be a writer, gotta be a writer. You're writing about bands in Dread. Be a writer, dude. Be a writer. If Eddie Boy Escudero was covering the scene with his camera, but there were a lot of guys covering the scene. There were a lot. It was a great time. But I think it was my time in the US that really told me that, okay, you can be a writer. Diba? So I'm happy to say that I'm writing a biography of a rock musician. I can't say who. I'm writing his biography that should be out this year. And then there's another book about, I don't want to say, people might steal the concept. I have another book I'm coming up with. It's about local music and
Awesome.
naghahanap lang ako ng sponsors, diba?
Ayan, so speaking of Bing has a question for us. You were in the punk scene in the early 80s. Do you have plans of writing about that scene? And who brought punk rock here? Actually, this is a modification of his earlier question. You were in the punk scene in the early 80s. You know the person who brought in the punk albums that Howling Dave played over at DZRJ. Do you have plans to write about that?
I don't know. I do know that see Delilah is a very good friend, no?
Oh.
I know that Delilah was bringing in some of those records. I mean, Howling Day was just fantastic, but I really don't know the backstory there. Um, because they weren't even available here. You had to go abroad to buy those
Oo
records.
nga, oo nga.
Go abroad, and
I think
only
that's one of our discussions. And I've been talking to some key people about this. Is that how Pinoy rock history and the music scene, the historical sense of our music scene, is only alive in terms of the people who were there and in the form of cuentos. There are very, very few books published about this.
yeah,
And we were talking earlier about the possibility of, I mean, it's different because when you write articles that are published online, a book is tangible, it can stay on your shelf forever, it's more personal in my sense. And
and the
if it
writing is
wasn't,
different.
and the writing is different, yes, the writing is completely different if it's in the book form. I'm just, thinking of what a gargantuan undertaking it would be, but what a fulfilling undertaking it would be if we wrote down these stories of our scene. Like, what, and before these guys are gone, like, what depresses me the most, I mean, going into this sort of tangent, right? What depresses me the most is that Pepe Smith, and he's a good friend of mine, he was a good friend of mine also. The
Mm,
story, the legacy of Pepe Smith will only live on in the stories that we know and the stories that we tell.
yeah,
You know
yeah,
what I mean? Because he's gone. He's gone ahead of us already.
that's
And same thing with Papa Dom. The encyclopedia of Pinoy music would be great, but wow, what an undertaking! I was thinking of assigning writers to separate volumes. Like, there should be a book about Club Dread. There should be a book about
I,
DCRJ. You
si Pat
know,
back was my classmate in Ateneo, and Pat, who owned Club Dread, I asked him several years ago, hey, let's do a book on Dread. Apparently, a couple of people are working on it, but I don't know what's on with that one. So I said, I don't want to pitch in anymore. If you have people doing that, let them do it. Um, I'd rather do. I have this other concept that I don't want to share online because or on the show because some people might steal the concept since no one is bankrolling the project. But I think it's a fascinating book. But that's aside from the biography of this rock musician that I'm writing about. No, but you're right. The Filipinos kasi generally are not good caretakers of history. We're poor caretakers
yes,
as a people. We're
yes.
horrible. Diba? I mean, national landmarks, all these famous places, we're just terrible at it. And yet, when Filipinos travel abroad, they go to the historical places, and
Yeah, we
it's
go we go to we go to museums, we go to landmarks,
that's why
and
people don't understand.
here
So they make mistakes. They commit the same mistakes because they don't know history. And a lot of people are fucking idiots. So,
we have a comment here from Craig James. The clubs are worth a book themselves. Exactly.
oh,
Because these
Craig is from England. He's in England. He's an Englishman who lived here, and
hello.
we're
Hello,
quite
Craig. Happy St. Patty's Day.
yeah, and we're old friends. And this guy is was a key figure also in Asin, behind the scenes, and among other bands. No? So Craig is an Englishman with a Filipino heart.
There
So
you go. I mean, going back to his comment, the clubs are worth a book themselves. Yeah, because these clubs gave birth to, were instrumental in giving birth to original music,
oh, definitely,
a scene,
definitely,
and a vibe. I mean, like, Mayrick should have a book. You know, Mayrick should have a book. Kalia should have a book. Or we can divide it by the Quezon City scene, the Makati scene, the Malate scene.
there
You know what I
should
mean?
should really be one, no? And that's really really sad in that there isn't anything. You know,
Hi, Jamie. You would remember me. We had a few drinks over the years. With you over the years. Well, I'm sure
I'll tell you
if I
his real
could
name.
see if I could see your face,
I'll
because I'm really bad with names,
tell you,
especially after a few drinks.
yeah.
Ayun, sabi nga ni Bing, Red Rocks. And then, of course, Jun Lupito has many interesting stories to share about their time. I know it's defining, it's very definitive in terms of the stories back in the day. I mean, these were the 60s, the 70s.
Mm,
And then we had some sort of lull because martial law was declared. And
mm,
then the scene in the 90s again. If I would love to have some form of historical account. And yes, it may be based on stories. So of course, there's going to be discrepancies on he said, she said, because these are all stories, right? But I think it would be an interesting read if we could figure out the silver thread that runs through the evolution of how the music scene developed, how Filipino music developed, especially the underground scene, and how eventually the underground scene became the popular scene.
Yeah, the
Because
popular.
that hardly ever happens.
Yeah. Yeah, the only time that happened was in the 90s in the US when the alternative scene became mainstream.
Yes.
And that was something else. That was worldwide. That was a worldwide movement. Diba? So, yeah, there should be more written stuff. And it's something I'd really like to do, no? Like, we just really need to preserve a lot of this stuff. A lot of this stuff. And
Because
sayang talaga.
this is part of a legacy. And also, like for example, if you're listening to current Filipino bands right now, like I for one, we love the Eraserheads. I love the Itchy Worms. I love Alejandro released a single last year that was his hardest rocking single because he was doing more pop stuff. How does one arrive there if you don't tell the stories of these things? I love the way Craig puts it, the different families of Pinoy music, and that would be fantastic in a
Definitely.
sense.
Definitely.
And there's also a take here that it might be interesting to take a look at the photographs and archive them as well. Yeah, we have actually quite a few photographs floating around, with digitized and all that. But what's important is I think the stories behind these photographs, and from what take we're taking it from. Like for example, case in point, Juan de la Cruz. If you ask the four of them or the three of them, you know, how did the scene happen, you're going to have three different perspectives
Yeah.
depending on what state they were in. So
Yeah.
I think these stories are so important to preserve not only the historical aspect of it, but also, in a general sense, if we don't know where we're coming from, it's hard to determine where we are. And if we don't know where we are, we don't know where we're going.
Exactly.
You
Exactly.
know?
But, I think people need to take a long, hard look at the music scene and what's wrong with it and how we can fix it and, make it vibrant, because we have all these talented bands, but, you go to one club and then you go to another club, it's the same people, more or less the same people again. Diba? And that's sad, diba? It's sad. I would always tell bands, the bands that I'm close to, you shouldn't be preaching to the choir. You should be preaching to the people who don't listen to you, diba?
Yes.
That's how you
Yes.
grow scene. But the thing is, nakakatawa. I heard something a couple of weeks ago about uh, creating our own sound as a response to K-pop by using native
Yeah.
instruments. That's one of the dumbest things I've ever heard.
I agree.
That's one of the dumbest things I've heard. And are you on drugs? Mm.
Or
I
are you so outdated that you cannot remove yourself from the indigenous musical
oh,
instruments that define our sound?
that's not supposed to define us. It's something we should be proud of, but diba?
Yeah.
If you want to go back to those native instruments, diba? Why don't we go back to using stones or something? Diba?
Right. It felt this movement that you just mentioned felt like we were going more backwards. And you're going to put us, or a creative musical industry, you're going to put us back in a really old box.
We're going back to the Stone Age, man.
Yeah, instead of moving forward.
Yep.
And it's difficult because when you talk about culture, we're such a diverse, collective of influences, whether it be from our the people who have taken over our country or influenced our country, our colonizers, etc., etc. I always end up getting into these arguments with these people that say, Jamie, you're not Filipino enough. And I'm like, what do you mean I'm not Filipino enough? You know,
Okay.
if you're going to be, if you're going to go backwards in the sense of indigenous instruments with that type of thinking, I would tell these people, dapat hindi ka naka jeans, dapat nakabahag ka,
Uh,
'di ba? You should be carrying a spear. You
I
shouldn't be,
did a
you
study
know.
on this one. I did a study on it, and I presented it to Mr. C and the people at Philpop. It's something I've been studying religiously through the years. The scene, what what to make out of it, and where to go, and how do we make it popular again. And I did a study, and it's not only the local scene I studied. I studied the scenes of other countries.
Mm.
I think it helps as a journalist. You're on ground. I pre-pandemic, I'd be out at least 3 nights a week, watching, going to gigs, whether they're at Sagiho, 70s Bistro, or Moe's, or somewhere here in Marikina, or you go to some of the clubs that just cater to death metal and all these doom metal stuff. I'd go everywhere. That's the only way that you can say that you're in touch with it, that you
Yeah.
understand what's going on. And I find it funny that, like, for example, many of the so-called record executives, they think that vinyl isn't back. And what the hell are you talking about? Diba? They still think that streaming is the way to go. I'm not saying that streaming is not the way to go, but there are other options. And they were shocked to find out that cassettes are back. Diba? Parang,
Yeah.
and you call yourself a record executive? That means you're so out of touch. Diba? And, if back in the 90s as an A&R and label manager, if the formula was lalabas ka ng album, tutugtog ka sa Itbulaga, or sa student canteen, or sa lunch date, or kung ano man yung nandun, maglalagay ka ng standee sa record bar, di ba? Tapos print ad. Yun na raw yung formula, di ba?
Oo. Yan
That's
yung
so,
plano, yan yung nakalatag na plano.
yung plantilla, di ba? Well, if you are paying attention in this age of the internet, that's not the solution. And many bands today think that, I'll just put stuff on Spotify, I'll put it on iTunes, I'll do my video and post it on YouTube, I'll be on Bandcamp, and that's it. Really, there are 40,000 videos that are put out in Southeast Asia alone on almost a daily basis. So
Yeah.
how do you gain traction from that? I think many people don't understand the marketing side of it. Diba? People have to invest in that one. Diba? What worked for you last time might not work for you today because it changes so quick. And it helps that you have to be on ground and understanding the scene. Diba? Some people put out vinyl because they think it's in vogue. Well, you see, really, para mo naman sabi may plaka ka. Pero naglabas ka nga ng plaka, wala naman liner notes, di ba? Gagawin mo nun, di mo pa ginawa ng tama.
You know what I loved about the resurgence of vinyl? Because I'm a cassette boy. My first collection was cassettes. We barely had any vinyl at home, and that I remember. No big collections and all that. I started amassing my collections from cassettes, and when we saw a format change into CD, I was extremely resistant to the format change. I remember buying my first CD. I was in London, and I bought Led Zepp 2, and I was like, "What the hell is this thing?" You know what I mean? It was so alien to me, even from my hands alone. In my hands, and then eventually you open up your I guess your mind into accepting these new formats because you can't get albums in the old formats anymore. And when vinyl came back, I realized the one thing that I had missed out, being late in the game, in terms of collecting and actively pursuing collecting music. When you go into a record store with like-minded people, I would go to Makati Cinema Square. I would go to the Salcedo Market and all that, and see the records, like yung mga kila Charlie Oreta, you know what I mean? And going through the records, you had very limited stalls in these spaces, right? They were very small spaces now. But the thing that amazed me was, in direct comparison to the Odysseys and the other record bars, these guys knew what they were talking about. And they would advise you, oh, if you like this album, you might like this album. And it wasn't coming from a perspective of increasing sales. It came from the perspective of expanding your musical knowledge.
Yep. Yep.
And that's what I loved about it. And you're combing through records with like-minded people. Like, if I remember pulling out a record of the Blues Brothers, and this guy beside me is like, "Oh my god, I've been looking for that record for years." And I said, "Well, I want to buy this record. So what are we gonna do?" And I could see the anguish on his face
You
that
know,
he had been looking for that record for so long, and it was in my hands. So syempre, 'di ba? Parang touch move 'yan, 'di ba? I have dibs. So ano yung ginawa ko? O, Jack and Poy tayo. Who's gonna get to buy this album? And he won the Jack and Poy. So I said, dude, then you deserve it. You know what I mean? And there's that camaraderie and a sense of community that
mm,
you don't find anywhere else in a shopping experience or in a purchasing experience.
you know,
And
go
go
ahead.
ahead, go ahead, go
Oh no,
ahead,
go
go ahead.
go ahead, go ahead.
No, it just amazes me that the personalized passing on and the collective appreciation for music with like-minded people um is something that you can't find anywhere else.
Yeah. Yeah.
When you love a band, even if if at first glance, if I look at you and you don't seem like somebody I would hang out with, but if I find out that you like the same band I do, then you're cool. You
Right.
know what I mean? Kasama tayo sa party. Kahit na mukhang pang-corporate ka, tapos ako naka-eyeliner, yung pala, gusto mo rin yung Cure,
Yeah.
de, we're gonna go to the same party. I don't seem to find that anywhere else.
Funny you mentioned that. You talked about like people recommending stuff, not simply from a sales perspective, but because of a love for music and a sense of discovery. Um, I remember this time it was in the Tower Records store at the Lincoln Center in New York, and I was browsing. I go to record shops every single day of my life. After work, I'd go there, um, and they were playing a song, and then this customer walks up to one of the guys just working there. Hey, who's singing that song? Then the guy says, and the guy working at Tower says, I think it's Bon Jovi. Then I said, no, that's Journey. They're singing Any Way You Want It. That's from their 1980 album Departure. The manager says, holy shit, how did you know that? And I said, well, I bought the album back then. And do you want to work here? No, I actually work in Virgin Records.
Oh,
So
I remember that Virgin Megastore on
uh,
Times Square. I was in New York. When I was living in New York, I was a bicycle messenger. And in between deliveries, when I didn't have a deployment for a delivery, I would always make it a point. I'd lock up my bike, I would cross the street, and I would just, if I had the money to buy an album, I would. If I didn't have money, I was so thankful for all the listening stations that
galing.
they had there, so I could actually listen to music before I would buy it if I had saved enough money to buy the album that I wanted.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And ito si JF Sarmiento was mentioning Imagine Jack Black in the movie High Fidelity. Yeah, that's one of the reasons. No,
Yes.
I've always, I got to work in a comic book shop for a few days. I didn't own it. I just worked at Comic Odyssey for a few days. I got to fulfill something. But I also got to work in a record store. That's Virgin Records in Times Square, the mega store that Jamie mentioned. Um, the funny thing is, at the time between jobs, I was waiting on tables from the morning till about the afternoon, and sometimes I would run pizza delivery in the east, upper east, no. And after a while, I'd be working at the Trump Tower. Yeah, I worked for Donald Trump. I was a school checker, and then uh, there was a time after that. Once I'm done at the Trump Tower or I'm done with the pizza delivery, I'd head over to Virgin night shift. Ako. I was a DJ. If I wasn't playing the music, I'd be working the lower floor where all the imports are. And I specifically told them I shouldn't say it out loud because my kids are gonna hear. Because I said, you don't have to pay me, just pay me in CDs or records. I'm gonna spend it anyway on this shit. So might as well.
That is true.
I did it, but yeah, there's nothing like you're playing something. You're on your station. You're playing it, and someone comes up to you. Hey, what's that? And then they buy it. That is one of the coolest things ever. Diba? Then Like one time, I'm playing the music of this band, and then this guy walks up and, hey, thanks for playing my music. And I,
Ah,
oh my
what a
God.
great feeling.
Iva, you see the artist himself, right? You know, really appreciating. He gives you a fist bump and like, wow, wow. And then the coolest thing is when people start to buy it, diba? And you know, Jamie, diba, you walk into Virgin. When the moment you walk in, you see some CD racks there, like what's new. And then
Oh,
when you go near where the cashier is on the upper floor, there's the indie rack, diba? Nandun yung indie rack, and my God, you know, that was my ticket to paradise. You know, I will not. One of my favorite bands of the last 20 years is British Sea Power, and for me, they're the heir to Big Country, but they're a more classical style band, and I will not forget the hype sticker. Diba? They sound like a shipwrecked echo in the Bunny Man. I was freaking sold, man. I was freaking sold. I bought the album. I still have it. I'm one of their biggest fans, and I swear by British Sea Power. The Strokes, man, back in what, 99? They were 99. They were the word, you
yeah,
know, in New
yeah.
York. Strokes, but they still had not an. They didn't have an album out, and you know, you wanted to watch them. If you wanted to go to one of the gigs, like the Mercury Lounge, good luck in getting in. Good luck in
Yeah.
getting in the Mercury
Oh, I
Lounge.
was I was stuck outside the Mercury Lounge for an hour. I couldn't get in, and
Good,
I actually asked the doorman, "Can you leave the door open so we can at least hear the music?"
yeah,
And he
and
said, "No, man, it's against the law." And I'm like, "Come on!" I was begging, begging.
yeah, you know, so that's one of the attractions, no? And you know, you discover new music, you learn about it, you love it, you fall in love with it, and then um, you know, then you backtrack. You backtrack. Like the Style Council introduced me to James Brown, diba? And Al Green, and to Northern Soul, diba?
See,
I,
that's another thing that you don't get. A very concrete time machine education, I call it,
yeah,
with anything else. If you're listening, if there's a band that you love to listen to, you listen to what they listen to, who influenced them, and it's usually more than just one influence. So
that-
with one band, you're discovering five, six other bands, and then you listen to the who influenced these influencers to this band, and it's just an exponential growth in terms of musical discovery.
yeah, definitely, definitely. And you know, you'll see influences here. Like for example, I love the Black Crows, and I saw the
Yeah.
Black Crows back in the day. And when you listen to them, they're such a blues influenced band. You'll hear a lot of Led Zepp in them. Diba? You'll hear a lot of Cream.
Mhm.
And if you're not a fan of Cream, if you didn't know Led Zepp, then you're gonna backtrack to who Led Zepp is, and then you'll discover all that amazing music. And when you get into Led Zepp, you'll get into Lord of the Rings. Diba?
Yes.
So,
Yeah, right. That actually Led Zepp was the main reason why in my youth I had to endure reading these lengthy Tolkien books. Because hey man, if Led Zepp is singing about them, then there must be something here. And this goes beyond the Ralph Bakshi animated Lord of
yeah,
the Rings, which I was glad to have, so I sort of knew where I was. But boy, these books were huge. And
yeah,
when you're a kid, you're like, I'm gonna read this thick a book. I don't even read my textbooks for school, you know, but I'm gonna read Lord of the Rings and all the other books that he had, the Return of the King and all that, because hey, Led Zepp is singing about them.
yeah,
And it's amazing how these things just open up our imagination into a wider and a bigger world na parang, the one feeling that I always get when I discover new music or I discover a new book because of, one gateway band or a gateway book or another, right? I always say, wow, meron palang ganito.
yeah. Do you,
And
Jake,
and
you know,
and and the discovery seems to be endless.
that's right. That's right. And speaking of discovery, man, do you know that there's such a thing as Tolkien metal?
No
JR,
way, really?
are all these Scandinavian bands that are inspired by the stories of Middle Earth, and they call it Tolkien metal because it's like really dark and like it's about the Nazgul and all that. And I actually bought one of the most expensive records that I ever bought. It's by this band called The Summoning, and man, it's just sounds from the Middle Earth, man.
I love
So,
that.
di
Oh,
ba,
I'm gonna Google that. I'm gonna get a list. I'm gonna listen to what the hell they sound like.
in metal, di ba? So, yeah, there are days when, yeah, gold, there are days I listen to that kind of stuff. For the last few days, it's been a lot of reggae, a lot of ska, a lot of dub, di ba? But that's gonna go away soon, and then I don't know what kind of music will be on heavy rotation in my turntables. No, so I have three. So it depends on what my. I have no clue what tomorrow will be. There are days it's soul music, and that's gonna get a Bing is gonna get a kick out of that, and I'm sure Boy at Season is gonna get a kick out of that.
Okay, so speaking about Bing and Boyet, they've had earlier comments where, disco sucks and we're disco haters. We used to be disco haters. I never like. I was a closed off, snobbish music appreciator that was defined by my eyeliner and my combat boots and my trench coat. You
Oh,
know,
you know,
but when I discovered disco, there are some days, and I've got to admit, it was for me the appreciation for disco music did not come until I actually did the Saturday Night Fever, the musical in Soler. And the one note that my director kept on telling me, because I would wear, and this was on purpose, or I don't know, maybe subconsciously, but I would deliberately wear all my rock t-shirts to the rehearsals
mhm.
because I think deep down inside, I was trying to rebel against the disco. I would wear my Rolling Stones T-shirt. I would wear my Razorback T-shirt. I would wear my Pink Floyd T-shirt. And my director every day, and I was playing the DJ in the club in Saturday Night Fever, and my director every day would tell me, Jamie, you have to embrace the disco. So I remember after like 3 or 4 days of him constantly giving me that note, and me feeling frustrated that usually when I get a note, I'll apply it right away.
Mhm.
That took me for about a week for me to apply that. So I put together a playlist. And it would, before rehearsals, as soon as I'd wake up in the morning, I'd be brewing my cup of coffee. And More Than a Woman, which is a song I had to sing
Mm.
in the musical, would be playing. And then I realized, oh my God, it's not just the Bee Gees who have a version of this. There's Tavares, there's all that.
Yeah.
It became a source of inspiration for me where I would be dancing around our apartment. And there were certain mornings where my wife would come out, and we both share a love for hard rock. She would come out of the bedroom and see me dancing to disco music, and she would ask me, who are you and what have you done with my boyfriend? Because why are you listening to disco? But it's amazing because I think that's what good music and good art actually does to somebody, is
Yeah.
that it breaks down the barriers, it breaks down the walls of not only between us in terms of our tribes or our societal, socio-economical statuses, whatever, but it breaks down also the walls that you have built in your own mind.
Yeah.
Like you said, on any given day, it might be soul, it might be hard rock, it might be, like the Black Crows is such a throwback, and I love the Black Crows. I
I love
actually
it.
got to see them in New York when they were promoting their Three Snakes and One Charm album, and I was reading the Village Voice, and there was this band called Mr. Crow's Garden
Mm.
playing at a small club up in Harlem. And I
Mm.
said, I know that name. That's their original name. So
Mm.
this is one of those urban myths that you think na, these big bands are trying to test out their new music in smaller clubs. So they
Definitely.
build themselves under another name. And I paid my $5. And sure enough, when they hit the stage, it was the Black Crows. But I was watching the Black Crows, who were back then playing arenas, especially after the second album. They were
Yeah.
playing arenas already, and to see them in a small club the size, imagine a Club Dread but with a balcony,
Mm.
the Club Dread on Timog but with a
Mm.
balcony. That's how small the club was, and we're watching the Black Crows, you know.
You mentioned using pseudonyms and all that. I once checked into our hotel using the name Tony Manero. Oh, Boyet, siguro naman kilala mo si Tony Manero, no?
Boyet still dresses like Tony Manero.
Oh, yan, di ba? Oh, Tony, oh, mag-Saturday Night Fever na tayo, di ba?
It's funny that whole the pseudonym thing also, because I used to be a road manager for foreign artists that would come here, and I remember when the Black Eyed Peas came, I actually billeted them at the Westin Philippine Plaza
Mm.
under different names, their rooms, so that nobody can just ask for the room of so and so, right? For Apple the app and all that. And I actually I actually put down on si Fergie. I made her name North Dakota North after
Oh,
the comic book.
comic books.
And then see, so when the band found out I was doing this, si Apple the app asked me, "Oh, so what's my name?" Sabi ko, "Yung name mo sa register is Amado Pineda, who was the old weather guy." And apparently, he knew about Amado Pineda. Tawa siya ng tawa. It's such an interesting thing to see, when like we've been talking about listening to music, and the feeling of buying a record of a band that you love, finding a record that you've always wanted to have in your possession and everything, but the life that comes with it,
Yeah.
of being not only not just a musician, or not just connected with the arts,
Mm.
but a music lover. It's a different life. Like, how many jobs were you working just to pay, just to be able to buy an album?
Lot.
I remember times in my life where that was the end all and be all. I have to save enough money to get this album. Naka-reserve na siya sa Unimart for 1 week.
Yeah.
I have to get there within the week so that I can buy it, or else somebody else is gonna buy it.
I get you. So is that a cue for me to bring out my records, Jamie?
Yes, here we go, ladies and gentlemen. We're gonna give you, out of all the records, I asked Rick to put aside, or to pluck out from his massive collection, his
Oh,
top 10 albums. And let me qualify that. It's not his top 10 albums, but these are the top 10 albums that have a personal value and meaning to Rick.
they have a
So
story.
I don't know what order we're going to do this in,
No,
but let's go for it.
but you know what? I'm sorry. I'm gonna have to throw in 2 extra ones. They're not 12 inches.
Ang hirap kung 10 lang, di ba? I mean, look at your shelf.
I'm gonna start out with this one.
Yes, the B-52s.
Is their independent released single of Rock Lobster and 52 Girls before they got signed by Warner. And
Wow.
I was in grade 6. We were already into Kiss. We were into Aerosmith, Queen, Led Zepp, Cream, Deep Purple, the bands of the time. I was 1979. And then the B-52s came out. My dad would bring home the Billboard magazine, and there was this full-page ad, the B-52s are coming. And I was like, what the hell is this? It's in the inside front page. When the moment you open Billboard, that was the inside front page. And I remember cutting it and posting it on my wall. And my dad was pissed because I cut off the... and then one of my rich classmates from school came back from the States, and he brought a copy of the first album of the B-52s. And everyone was into Spyro Gyra. Everyone was into Earth, Wind, and Fire and stuff like that. And we were the only guys in rock music. And then we saw the B-52s and like, holy crap, this is an incredible, incredible album. So, I had to wait till I went abroad till I got my own copy. And it wasn't released right away locally. It was not. If anyone says B-52's first album was released right away, it was not. That's certainly not true. And I only got this copy 1999, Bleecker Bob's in New York, in Greenwich Village, for $15, because the prices of records were going down. And I saw this, and I didn't even know about this because I didn't know about it. So I saw it and like, look at that. That's the back of it. And
amazing.
The cool thing about it, its serial number is DB. The code is DB52.
Sakto.
$5 from Bleecker Bob, and that was absolutely amazing. And I love the B-52s to this day. I super love them. I got Fred Schneider's stuff that came out in Record Store Day. It's just amazing. I love that band. The
Diba?
second,
Sabi ni Bing, I hate you, Rick Olivares. Yeah, see, I know how you feel. So
I
I
love.
think we should. I think we should just like raid, go to Rick's place and raid and have a listening session.
Well, dude, when there's the pandemic's gone, I'm hosting a party here. I'd love for all you guys to come over. And Gold, please come over too. I'd love to talk to you. And Audrey, I'd love to talk to you about Jack Kerouac and all that stuff.
Yes.
And Burroughs and all that. The second 7-inchers I'm going to show is by this local punk band, the Ex-Senadors, and that's the Menju Monster back then. I had not come back into vinyl, and then I walked into Toti Dalmacion's shop in Legazpi Village, and this is the first thing I see. I've known Toti for the longest time, and Toti's just an amazing, amazing guy. That guy is what. I don't know, maybe he's a prophet when it comes to music. This man is
Toti's amazing.
Toti's
just amazing.
For decades now. And I see this in his shop. And, this opened the door for me I didn't know about the local scene. I didn't know about it. I was gone for a long time. And then this told me that there was a scene. I mean, really, they put out this record, the 7-inch record. And this got me back. I started digging in, looking. Oh my God, there's just so much. The Pinoy rock, Pinoy punk rock, punk and hardcore community, they're putting out a lot of stuff. And I got almost everything that has been put out since I have it. No? So yun yung dalawa. This helped me get back into vinyl. Helped me get back.
Nice. Sabi ni Bing, baka bantayan ako ni Rick pag dadalaw kami sa bahay mo, Rick. O sabi,
actually,
okay lang. Basta ikaw yung bantayan ni Rick para hindi ako yung binabantay. So ako bahala.
With the laser, diba? So the moment something goes missing, you're gonna get zapped.
Oo nga naman.
First record I'm gonna show you, 12-inch record, is Interpol, Turn on the Bright Lights.
Wow.
This is actually the title of my book, Turn on the Bright Lights. That's the title of my personal book with all those letters.
Nice.
Shows this. This was my soundtrack in New York. Interpol came out, and the Strokes were everyone's darlings, like the yuppies and all that. This were the darlings of the critics, the music critics. And I remember I'd go down to the Bowery to watch all these bands, and then it would be raining, it would be dark, and I'd be thinking of their music, which is a mix between The Cure and New Order with some goth thrown in. It's like retro new wave, but very dark. And this is just such an incredible, incredible album. And the cover says it all. Then the next year they go on tour opening for The Cure. And dude, I don't care if it cost me $80 to go to Randall's Island to watch them open for The Cure, but I went there to watch. Even if none of my friends didn't want to watch them, I went by myself. And it was an incredible, incredible performance by not only The Cure, and their album at the time was The Bloodflowers. They were touring, promoting The Bloodflowers, and Interpol opened for them. And it's just absolutely amazing. And it's a highlight in my life because I got to see The Cure. And I love The Bloodflowers. And, if you love Disintegration, Pornography, Bloodflowers completes that Doom trilogy that The Cure.
Yes. Agreed. I totally agree. I'm a big Cure fan. And watching The Cure has been on my bucket list, and I've never had the opportunity to.
Don't worry, they're still around, so there's a chance. Yeah. And, but then this one complemented that, and I was just happy to watch them. And I love Interpol. They're just really incredible. And since we're in the top New York bands, this is the Strokes.
Yes.
This is the actual original pressing. This is the European copy because they did not want to release this in Walmart and other places. So they put a different cover for the US version. And as I told you, I was working the basement of Virgin where all the imports are. And this is the British import.
Nice.
So I got it. I got it. And I'm so happy that I still have it. And dude, I love that band. That's an incredible band. It's like listening to television all over again. It's like listen, I can hear Lou Reed and all that stuff, all those great New York bands of the 70s. And it's just this this album, this is it, represents those days along with Turn on the Bright Lights when my life was in the shitter and music was just keeping me sane and preventing me from going to Iraq or Afghanistan.
Well, you know what? I for one am extremely thankful that we didn't lose you to a war or to the U.S. Army.
No, I would have been. I would have been
Diba? I
fine.
mean, we were also talking about Almost Famous. Diba? There was that famous line by Penny Lane, who said, "Look, on days that you feel lonely, all you gotta do is go to a record store and hang out with your friends. Go
Exactly.
through all the records and hang out with your friends."
Yeah, definitely. The third album I want to show you is this. Now, it
Yo,
sounds odd to show this because a lot of this might show up on a lot of people's lists. But there's a story here.
Hmm.
This is the original Tough Gong Jamaican press
wow.
at Black Lion Records along Waterloo Street in Kingston. I had no plans on buying this. I was just there because, we wanted to experience Jamaica, me and my girlfriend. And then we go there and then we see, hey, Black Lion Records. And it's like a warehouse. It's really like a warehouse with records hanging from the ceiling. And it's just really a crappy place, but it's the closest thing to record heaven in Jamaica. And if you
Wow.
love your reggae music, if you love your dub music, if you love your ska music, everything's right there. And Tough Gong, Tough Gong, first
Yeah,
press,
man.
and
Oh, si Bing naglilista na eh.
this,
Kung anong ide-decot niya sa'yo. It's funny because you're saying like the Bob Marley the Legend album will show up in a lot of people's greatest hits playlists, right, and all that. It's funny because I was never into reggae. I mean, this is why this is how I discover music, is through a personalized sharing, if you will, no. And I never literally, huh, and this is just goes to show how ignorant I was of a wider world of music. I never knew who Bob Marley was, or the Wailers, or even reggae until I started watching Coco Jam. And I would watch them religiously until I realized now, maybe I should get the album. And
mm,
I was quite disappointed at my first spin of the album,
mm,
because it wouldn't be. That's when I realized the genius of these musicians who were in Coco Jam. Si Rolly, si Jun Lupito, si Rico Velez, si Bosho. Um, I realized what geniuses they were, because in a sense they were like the Grateful Dead, where they would play their version of No Woman No Cry, and it would go into an epically cosmic groove, and then they would come back, they would do a 10-minute version of this song, and then when I listened to the album, I'm like, bakit ang ikli? Ito pala yung original na version.
mm,
And so that led to two discoveries just from my first spin of that album, on
mm,
how incredible Bob Marley was in writing these songs, and also how amazing this band Coco Jam was in terms of interpreting these songs.
right,
Yes,
right.
Bing, I agree. Wild yung first album ng Coco Jam. I agree.
Yeah,
I was really pissed off that my cassette of their first album was lost to Ondoy in
mm,
storage. So I
sayang.
was so upset. But then, there are some copies out there.
But again, it might sound like it's easy to list legend there, but I went there with no plans on buying records
Yeah.
because I just really wasn't into full time vinyl. I just usually buy the punk rock albums. But when I got there, I thought of Papa Dom. I thought of Doming,
Mm.
and it was Doming who really introduced me to Bob Marley. So the moment I got it, I thought of Doming, and I remember saying thanks, Doming, diba? And it was such a cool thing to have, and it's like a communion with the
Yes.
man and his land and his roots, and going, like when I was teaching in Brooklyn, just across the school where I used to teach in Brooklyn was this Jamaican restaurant, and the guy was playing Lee Scratch Perry and all this other stuff, and I just loved it. And I my world was just Bob Marley and the Wailers, and he introduced me to more than Bob Marley. Diba? I got into Bunny Wailer because of him, and you know, there, as Jamie said, you learn from other people, and then you discover, you go back, you listen to a lot of other stuff, and I actually have around 10 records from Jamaica, the original Jamaican press of Bunny Wailer, Peter Tosh. I have them over here, and
Wow.
it's not a vanity thing. It was a cool thing to have at the time. You're there. You enter
Oh,
Black.
nandun ka na eh.
Oh, you're there. How can you not buy it? How can you not buy it, diba? And speaking of reggae, I think this is the very first Filipino song on reggae, Usok by Lolita and the Boys,
Yes.
for 5 pesos at Musicland in Alimon. Diba? And
Yan, Rick, yan, idedekwat ko yan. Kasyang-kasya yan sa bag ko.
okay, the next record is by another New York band, Phil M. Band Versus. This is the three Baluyot brothers and an American Fontaine Tubes. They're all from Detroit, but they moved to New York, so they are kind of labeled as Versus NYC. And they came
Wow.
in the 1990s, and they performed here several years ago, Versus. And I got to see them back then, and then to see them also here in Manila was such a thrill and a treat. They played at Magnet at BGC, and this is my first record of Versus. My first record. This one down here is the cover of their CD, diba? But this is the outlet. Then this is from the awesome Teen Beat Records back then, and this is just 90s alternative rock and boy girl harmonies, but indie rock, and the lyrics are just really awesome. If you don't know this band, you gotta get into them. And I have all
Oh,
their
yeah.
I have all their stuff on vinyl and CD. Diba? And um, I wrote about them. I finally got to write my story about Versus several years ago, and it was such a thrill to be able to write about your heroes. And one of the biggest Versus fans I know locally is Diego Castillo, and me and Diego just talk about them all the time. And then when I listen to the songs of Sandwich, I'll tell Diego, "Hey, I know where you got that riff," and then he's gonna look at me and say, "Oh, you know me too well." And it's
I
that
have actually never heard of them.
you
So
gotta give
I'm very excited to discover them.
you gotta listen to them. Start off with the first song, "Lose That Dress." It's absolutely amazing. This is 90s. This band is ahead of their time. They were named after Mission of Burma, as an album by Mission of Burma, and they're another alternative band that never got their dues because they came out or sound around the same time as bands like Pavement and Jane's Addiction. And this is just an incredible record. And I've been pushing Mark Robinson of Teen Beat. I've struck up a friendship with him. Hey, you got to release a box set of Versus records, and they have a lot, So I think I have almost everything that they've put out, and they're Filipinos, man.
Yeah.
They
I've never heard of them, so I'm so excited to discover them.
come out. This is the album Secret Swingers. This is just really amazing.
Wow, pangalan pa lang ng album, sold na ako.
Oh,
Secret Swingers.
okay. This one is a special record. It's a test press of Gapo Volume 1.
Wow.
It is the test press. It was given to me by the band The Frictions. This is only given to me simply because I'm the son of Danny Olivares, and we were watching them in this place in Gapo called The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly.
Mm.
And the tagline of The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, the bar in Gapo, their tagline was where we're going to rock your balls off, man. Imagine as a kid, as a teenager, your dad brings you there, and we're with then Mayor Dick Gordon because they're like a couple of batches apart in Ateneo. So we were there, and then we're watching, and then see all these sailors and all that, these Marines watching, they're off duty, and they're watching bands like the Soul Jugglers play. And I will not forget, they were playing Perwisyo sa Lipunan that I absolutely loved, The Frictions. And I thought it was an amazing song. And it came out, when they put it out on a single, it had this yellow label that I bought at Musicland also for $5. And I'm not sure if it's Canary Records, besides it had a yellow label. And I was such a fan. Whenever they would play in Manila, I'd try to catch them. And they knew that I was such a huge fan. So they gave me this as my birthday gift.
Fantastic. That's amazing.
13th birthday gift. 13. It's
Oh
not
my God.
a number. I'm sorry. It's a lucky number. So I'm happy to have this. Is the test press. Test press, white label, no Ace Records on it. So
Amazing.
Years, diba? Since we're on OPM, the next record is this one, the Juan de la Cruz.
Yon.
And it's signed by all of them, by Pepe,
Nice.
by Mike, and Wally. In the front and in the back.
Nice.
And
Wow.
their final set list ever, in their final show as the Juan de la Cruz Band, I had it. Binigay sa akin ni Mike Hanapol. Then that took me full circle. When they launched this one, it was at Ali Mall in Cubao. And batang Cubao ako eh. So, syempre, alam ko may launch, di ba? I was still in school at the time. I was in high school when this album came out. And I had to go there. I had to go. And I saved up my money to buy this record. And I didn't get them to sign it because they weren't there. They had a show at the Araneta Coliseum that day. And that was the day that they could pack arenas, and that place is full. And you'd like to think that the Araneta Coliseum was only packed by the PBA, or even when Donna Summer performed there. But my dad brought Donna Summer over, and Donna Summer coming over for lunch at the house, a highlight of my life, just seeing her. And I still have pictures of my dad awarding her gold records on Student Canteen with Helen Vela and Connie Reyes. And I have pictures of that one. And I share it every now and then. Jamie, I have a picture of my dad awarding Monique.
Really?
Award, yes, I do. I'll share it with you offline, brother.
Yeah. I'd love that. I'd love to send it to her. But wow, a signed record by Juan de la Cruz by all three.
Yeah. And
that's from the days where they were together and packing arenas. What I would give to have a time machine and go back to those times.
Later on was Pepe became the barkada, my brother. My brother, the band, they won after Ateneo. He went to UP. They won the Battle of the Bands in UP. They're a Red Hot Chili Peppers inspired band called Usok, and they were performing in Dread. And Pepe at the time was hanging out a lot at home, barkada. And my brother's girlfriend at the time was DJ Alvaro. Pare, like I said, music was just such a huge part of the home. You'll never know who's gonna be there on any given day. It's just such a fantastic thing and feeling. Then you see them, then you talk to them, and like, oh my God, you're here. It's such a cool thing as a kid. And Juan de la Cruz.
We've got to make a book, and I don't care if I'm giving this concept away online and in public, but we've got to make a book about Pepe and all the stories we have about him.
Nako, may kwento.
Ang daming kwento tungkol kay Pepe.
Kwento ako dyan. Nasa Gapo kami. And Pepe goes around with a 5-centavo coin and asking, pwede magpabarya? Diba? And he says it with such a straight face, and you don't know if he's kidding or if he's pulling your leg. And that was absolutely amazing. And, they're off. They don't have a show until that night. Just to witness all this stuff is such a blessing.
Yeah.
Blessing to see them. And on and off the stage. And like Queenie, I'm with his daughter Queenie. I'm such good friends with Queenie. I recently did her bio, her artist profile. I did it, and I did it because I love Queenie, diba?
Yeah.
And I've been bothering Bebop because Pepe told me that he has a cassette of unreleased tracks.
Ayun.
I wrote an article about him. We were talking at Handlebar several years ago. He said, I want to make sure that Idiosyncrasies is not my last album. That I
Yes.
have more songs in the tank. And he told me he had this cassette. And Bebop and Queenie were telling me that they saw a lyric sheet somewhere or something like that of a half-finished song. So it's something I'm talking about with the Smith family about doing unearthing any of these lost songs, and if you can get other musicians to finish it off, and that would be
When Bebop was a kid, when I was when after doing Jun Lupito's Bodhisattva's album, and we were touring it, I got to know Pepe, because he would jam with us and all that, and through the gatherings at Pepito Bosch's house, we got to hanging out. And I remember one particular weekend where Jun Lupito tasked me to pick up Pepe and to bring him to Puerto Galera because he had to detox. He had to get away from the city and enjoy some nature. So nauna na sila June sa Puerto Galera, and I was tasked to pick up Pepe at his house in QC. And of course, that was a whole ordeal on its own. And he decides to bring Bebop, who was like maybe 4 or 5 years old lang. He decides to bring Bebop, his son. And Bebop, if back in the day when you first met him, if there was any definition of a demon child, it was Bebop. Okay. And so there we got to the Batangas Pier by they didn't have a car, so we took a bus. And when you're taking a bus with Pepe Smith, of course you're gonna get VIP treatment because pare, that's Pepe Smith. So we had a whole road to ourselves. We finally landed in Batangas Pier, and Pepe was tired, so he was just sitting down. So I was relegated to being the babysitter of Bebop. And Bebop took it on his head. Wow. Wow. So Bebop took it upon himself to try to jump into the water in the Batangas Pier. And Pepe wasn't running around looking after him. I had to be the one looking after him. And eventually, this kid had all the energy of a 5-year-old, right? I eventually, since I'm a survivalist, I had parachute cord in my backpack. So eventually, there is a time in his life where Bebop, I don't know if he'll remember it or not, but I had to tie him to a post at the Batangas Pier while we were waiting for the ferry. And Pepe was laughing at me. And I'm like, Pepe, sorry because I had to tie him up. And Pepe told me, actually whispered to me, okay lang yan, Jamie, I've always wanted to do that. Pero buti ikaw yung nagtali kay Bebop.
Grabe. Wild child, wild child.
Oh, yan. Nino Mendoza's in the house. Yan. Speed Glue and Shinky. Yun.
Si Pepe.
Diba?
I have a couple more albums here. I have all the Juan de la Cruz band records there in the back. Okay, the next record I want to show is... Okay, this might sound like, okay, it's Nirvana, Nevermind. No, this is the first press of Nevermind. The first press.
Wow.
There's a story here. There's a story. My brother got me into Nirvana. At the time, I was, you're working abroad. You don't really know. You're just trying to make a name for yourself in Hong Kong, and I've kind of lost touch with the music scene because you're busy. You're married. You have different set of priorities. And my youngest brother Robin was saying, you gotta listen to Nirvana. They're just out, and I'm like, oh, that's a great name. And they have an album called Nevermind. And then I got this. It's the very first press of Nevermind.
Nice.
Very, very first press. So, if you're going to ask me, does it matter if it's a first press? No, doesn't matter. But if it's a first press, that means I got it when it came out.
Yes.
It came out and I was there. So it's a source of pride for me that, that I was in tune with the scene and I got it. And the band was just exploding. You'd hear it. I got this at the Silver Chord Center in Shinchachoy. at the basement of the Silver Cord Center, because my office was just a few blocks away, and HMV was along Haiphong Road. Silver Cord was very close to Ocean Center. My lunch breaks, I'd go out and I'd go to the record stores. Yun yung trip ko. I'd go to bookstores, I'd go to record stores, I'd go to the manga comic book stores that are near the Buddhist temple, the Muslim temple. Diba? So they had, that's where I'd go. And I told my brother, hey, look what I picked up. And, not many people were into vinyl. Vinyl was on its way out at the time. But they put it out. And, I said, sige, let me get it. Let me get it. Because it was prominently displayed. So I said, sige, let me get it. But the first thing I got was the CD, which I still have to this day. Then I liked it so much, I went to get the record. And I'm proud to have the first press of this one. It may not sound, but I don't care. I don't care.
No, yeah, you were there when it first came out. And sometimes it's not about the quality of the pressing. It's not about, it's about I was there when it was released. And and that's something that stands out in your, lifelong musical journey. I was there,
Before I show you the next record, I'm going to show you a magazine. Spin.
Okay. Yeah.
And like I said, I would always go to the record stores. Always, always go. Sometimes twice a day pa. Diba? Parang na-memorize ko na nga yung catalog. Diba? Pag naghahanap na customer, ako na nagtuturo, it's over here. Diba? And I saw this on the racks. And I had not listened to punk rock since the Bad Brains. And I saw this. And I was like, whoa, what is that? So I bought the magazine. This is the same magazine that I bought. And when I got home, I was staying at the Chungking Mansion. And then I was reading this. I was like, oh, wow, I got to get the record. So I went out and I bought this very first press of An Out Come the Wolves. The very first press. And I became a Rancid fan for life. I must have seen him like 10 times.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah. And this is their very first single. Their very, very first single. And
ayan si Bing. Kanina, I hate you, Rick. Ngayon, I really hate you, Rick.
Like I said, punk rock. I love punk rock. And this got me back into records in the 90s. Yeah. This one. Nirvana, no, it didn't get me back into records. This one got me back into punk rock records, and I'd buy it once in a while, but not too often. And I love Rancid to this day. And people say that they're selling out. Really now, really now. Punk rock record I'll show you. I have two more to show. Is Los Angeles by X.
Wow.
This is the first pressing Slash Records. Slash Records. And there, it says there. You can see it down below there. It says Slash Records.
Yeah, I agree with you, Craig. Craig has a comment. Now he's just showing off. Yeah.
No, there's a story here. I'm all showing you stuff from my youth, most of them, except for Nirvana and Rancid and Interpol. Most of them are records from my youth. Back then, if you found a copy of Cream magazine on the racks of the old print diffusion, if you were growing up around that time, there was no book sale, there was print diffusion, diba? And they were the ones they eventually became book sale, if I have my story correct. But print diffusion was the local secondhand and brand new seller of magazines and books. Okay. And Cream magazine, if you saw it on the racks, you bought it. If you're into rock music, you bought Cream magazine because Lester Bangs is a writer there. Cameron Crowe also wrote for Cream magazine. And it was such an irreverent magazine. No, Jingle was not like Rolling Stone. Jingle was like Cream magazine. Let's get the story right. They were like, because they were irreverent. They told a lot of jokes. And in the pages of Cream, and I will not forget that there is this small mention of Los Angeles by X, this Los Angeles punk band by the name of X. And they had some of the cool, I mean, like, we all know the Ramones were named after a pseudonym by Paul McCartney. But
Mhm.
when you think of the members, Billy Zoom, Exene Cervenka, who inspired Madonna's attire for her first album because they lived in the same area, and John Doe and DJ Bonebreak. I mean, wow, what names, diba? And then they were produced by Ray Manzarek of The Doors.
Yeah.
You put that together, you've got magic.
Yeah.
Better. This is the time when I was heavily writing poetry. And Exene Cervenka and John Doe both wrote poetry. And now you put Ray Manzarek in the picture, who produced their albums. And it's like channeling Jim Morrison for a whole new audience, except that they were punk rockers. And
Yeah.
I fell in love with them. And I remember I badgered my uncle, who was working as a talent scout in Hollywood. I said, please, 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 please get me this record. I don't care. Just get me this damn record. I will do whatever you want. Just get me this damn record. Diba? So, and I did get this record. I did get it. I got two copies. One that I got at Stanley Market in Hong Kong, and this one. So I still have both of them, to be honest with you. And this is such a great band. And they weren't your typical punk rock band. They, they had a lot of rockabilly, and they had an rockabilly influence in them. But Cream magazine was instrumental in making me buy this band, and they are one of my favorite bands to this day. I have all the records, and hearing their songs on TV sci-fi, even a sci-fi series like Battlestar Galactica, even used some of their songs from their third album, Under the Big.
Wow.
And like, wow, a lot of people are fans of X. And I remember growing up at the time, everyone, if you were into punk rock, everyone talked about this film, The Decline of Western Civilization. Yeah, so that's something. And I do have a record of The Germs with Darby Crash and Pat Smear. It's right in the back. It's on their original release. The last record I'm going to show you, and yes, we're at the end. I was too young to know the Beatles. I was born at the height of their popularity, but I didn't know them because I was way too young. I did not have the Beatles. I did know of Yellow Submarine. The Beatles that I knew growing up were Wings.
Wow. Yeah.
Wings.
Yeah.
That was the time when they were. I knew of Wings when they did Live and Let Die. And how can you not know about Live and Let Die? Since everyone is crazy about James Bond films.
Correct.
And I will forever not forget that speedboat in the Everglades, just flying up there, and then Roger Moore and all that. It's stuck. It's hardwired to my brain. And then hearing the song Live and Let Die. So I was too young for the Beatles, but I did know Paul McCartney and Wings. And it was, this is the first, I know it's the greatest, but it's the first album Wings that I ever got. I have the American, the UK versions of this one and the Japanese version. And it's just so cool. And
It's so funny that, like, for those of us who started out in punk rock or new wave, when I eventually transitioned into rock and roll, I was always, my gateway band for that was the Doors. And then eventually from the Doors, I discovered the Rolling Stones. And it was only until years later until I finally gave the Beatles a chance. And don't hate me for this, guys, because I was asked by the producer of Godzilla when I interviewed him for MTV. It's like, why do you like the Doors? Because apparently Roland Emmerich, who shot the Godzilla film, when I was interviewing them, he loved the Doors, and we both expressed it in the same way. They were the good boys of rock and roll, it's the Beatles. They were the bad boys of rock and roll, that's the Rolling Stones. And they were the weird boys of rock and roll, which was the Doors. Doon ako sa weird.
Yeah.
But discovering the Beatles was, even encountering them and discovering them, and coming to a deeper appreciation for them so late in the day. I'm actually thankful for that because you realize the brilliance of this group. And after listening to them, and when I finally discovered them, I'm like, where do you go after that? And this is a band that has come and gone,
Mm.
but they still stand the test of time.
Yeah.
And even under the most incredible scrutiny, I still sit down and wonder, like when I was a recording engineer, I was wondering how the hell did they record this on 4 tracks? How did they record this on 8 tracks? And that's the testament to their brilliance and to their relevance to this day.
Right, right. And speaking of standing the test of time, I saved this Beatles poster.
Wow.
I saved it, di ba? The Beatles Battle of the Bands contest at SM City Parking Area, November 8, 1992. And I saved
Amazing. Amazing. Hoy, ipa-frame mo na yan.
in Basurero. I save all this stuff. But yeah, if you're a music fan, you just, for the sheer love of it, you go around. You look for bands to discover, you watch, diba? Some people will even call me a poser because I like punk rock, but I don't dress punk rock. And like, all right, if
Not
that's
about what you wear. It's not about what you wear, guys.
diba? So there are times I watch death metal, but I'm the only one not probably in with long hair and all that stuff. But I like a lot. Over the years, I've learned to appreciate a lot of music, a lot of it. The only one that I cannot appreciate is country music. If you play me a country song, I get violent and I'm gonna smash the guitar on your head. It's the one thing that I cannot listen to. Diba? That now
maybe you're not there. Maybe you're not there yet.
I'm sorry,
Maybe,
nah.
maybe you're not there yet.
No, I'm not gonna get there. Them words for me. So don't even dare. If you're next to me and you play that, I'm gonna smack you the next week.
Okay, Rick. All right. So we're hitting the 2 hour mark. So I'm gonna go into the rundown where I'm gonna ask you 10 quick questions, and off the top of your head, just give me an answer. All right. So let's go with question number 1. What is your favorite word?
Travel.
Nice. What is your least favorite word?
Potential.
Potential. Interesting.
It's a dangerous word.
Yes.
Live up to
Have,
then
how many times have you heard that? Oh, you have so much potential. What the hell does that mean?
I've applying for work after school. Everyone compare me to my dad or my mom. They'd tell me if you have 1/3 of your dad's talent, you'll be an asset to the company. I love my dad. But I idolize him. I mean, I'm thankful for what he's given me, but it was tough. It was tough. You're compared. And if you don't live up to that, you're a failure. You're a fuck up.
Yeah.
So I had to find my own path. And back then people would say, "Oh, you're the son of Danny. You're the son of Yomi." And nowadays it's the other way around. Oh, so you're Ricky's mom. You're Ricky's dad.
Yeah, it's different. It's different when you have to live up to a certain, to especially like our fathers. There's something about sons and fathers. When your father has accomplished so much, and people are looking at you, na ikaw yung magtutuloy nito. No, I'm like, wait. I have my own thing going, and that takes a lot of courage to do that. Actually.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Rick. Next question. What turns you on?
Bright people.
Nice. What turns you off?
Fake people, posers.
Me too. All right. What sound or noise do you love?
Music. Is that too vague?
Well, at least I know when you say music, I know it's not country music.
Music.
All right. What turns you off?
Country music. There you go.
All right. What is your favorite shower song? And we all sing in the shower. What is your go-to? And I'm not talking about singing along with the record you put on. But when you're in the shower, what do you sing? Off the top of your head.
Happy Trails, Van Halen.
Nice. Okay.
Bumbity, bumbity, the happy trail. David Lee man. Happy
That
trail.
that's cool. Okay. What habit or behavior annoys you the most?
People who pretend that they know, but they don't know.
It doesn't cost us anything to say, "Oh, I didn't know that," and that opens you up to a whole world of discovery when you say you don't know, and there's no shame in not knowing.
And people will say that, like, hey, I was there. I was part of that scene. Oh, really? People will say, how was that game? Oh, really? Mm, all right. Okay. But they weren't there. Diba? I'm
Yeah.
not, it's impossible to be there. But there's like, you're telling me you're at this basketball game. Dude, you were like 7 years old. Diba?
Yes.
College,
Yes.
it's a college basketball game. And, diba? Like, okay, sige. Diba? No.
You don't need to. I think this is essential to some people's feelings of wanting to belong.
Yeah, you don't
Um.
need that, diba? I mean, I wasn't everywhere.
Yeah.
That's certainly true. I wasn't at everywhere. I wasn't at every. I was in a lot of gigs, but I wasn't at every gig, and I certainly don't know everything, diba?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So Rick, next question: if you could collaborate with any artist, living or dead, who would that be?
Paul McCartney.
Wow. Nice. Cool. Except I heard that, if Paul McCartney ever did a gig here, I wouldn't be able to work on it because he's actually very militant about making sure that all his crew, in-house and local representatives are all vegetarian. And I'm like, hindi ako tatagal dyan. He would probably be able to smell the meat on me.
But
Okay.
if
Oh,
it's
go
not
ahead.
Paul McCartney, Dave Grohl.
Dave Grohl. Oh, Dave Grohl, I think would be so much fun. Both of them would be so much fun.
Dave
But
Grohl.
Dave Grohl, did you see the Sound City documentary?
Yep.
Well, okay. See, ladies and gentlemen, this is what Rick does. He just pulls out records. I'm sure he has a soundtrack of that.
No, I don't. I do. I wanted to put.
See,
This is a
oh,
sample album, Probot. He
nice,
just came out. Dude, he's doing it with Kronos, with Max Cavalera, with Lemmy of Motorhead, diba? With Lee Dorian, with Wino, diba? With Tom G. Warrior, diba? King Diamond. It's a heavy metal album. Dave
nice.
performs all the instruments except the vocals are done by all these famous rock stars, these metal artists. And when that came out, and I was like, I was into super metal at the time. I was what into Yeah, I was in a metal phase at the time. Bands like Killswitch Engage, diba? Uh, I'd be going and watching all these. I'd go to Ozfest and stuff like that, and I actually blame that on Stephen Liu. Although I know that Stephen is into that music, but the Stephen, I remember Stephen's stories of going to Lollapalooza and like it'd be on all sorts of stuff, and everything would just be moving around in different circles and different colors. And I know I never did that stuff, but um, I would remember his stories about going to festivals and these. So whenever I go there, I think of Stephen Liu. Yeah,
Nice.
Dave Grohl, Dave
All
Grohl.
right. All right. Okay. So, question number 10. When you get to heaven, what do you want God to say to you?
Oh wow, I don't think about that. I'd certainly like to go. Well, you've heard me say this in class, Jamie, that like Jamie, for those watching, Jamie's in my writing class, and I share with them my secrets on writing, on how to get this done, etc., etc. How you do this to become successful in this kind of field. And I teach a lot nowadays, and uh, even the secrets, how to do this and how to do that, how to get here, how to get there. I share it, and I always go back to the parable of the talents, where God will ask you, "What did you do with your talents?" And in the parable, some people just didn't do anything. They buried it and they didn't do anything with their talents. And I'm never selfish except for lending my records and my comic books. But I share knowledge. I like to help people. Twice a week, I go out and feed the homeless. I go around New Manila, Cubao, the Katipunan area where I live. And even when I don't have money, I do it because it's the right thing to do. And I know what it's like not to have money. There's one point in my life I only had $10 left in my pocket, and it's the only money I had left in the world. And I was walking from New Jersey to New York. I'd walk there, going to work and back to work because I didn't have money. Um, so I guess it's, if God would tell me something, I tried to do my best. My best. I'm not perfect. I'm not the best writer. I'm not. I have my faults as well, but I'd like to think that he'd say that I did my very best and everything. And I tried to be nice to people, and I try to really be nice, and especially to the poor and the homeless. And it's something I've done ever since I was a kid. Ever since, and even abroad, I do it. I do it. I buy turkeys on Thanksgiving for the poor, and it's just something that you do if you can help and other people for a day. And I post it every Monday. Every Monday on my Facebook, I post it like Monday, start of a new work week. Um, Always give it your best and bring your own sunshine to wherever you are. And while you're at it, do what you can for the homeless and needy, because the hope that you share goes a long way in making sense of this crazy world. And I post that on all my social media every Monday. It's become like a mantra for me. Uh, More than anything, it's just helping. I think it's something I learned in school and from my parents. And whether I'm teaching or doing relief goods work or whatever, it's something that it's something I'd like to do. Diba? I wrote about a refugee camp in Thailand about 12 years ago, and that experience was life changing. To be in a refugee camp within sniper distance of Myanmar,
Wow.
diba? In a refugee camp where there's no electricity, there's no light, because when the moment you flick on those lights, just the snipers.
You're you're a target.
Yeah, so yeah, it's a life changing experience. You try to write from a refugee's perspective, and that made the front page of the newspaper, telling a story of what it's like to be in a refugee camp. I told the story of what does a mother tell her child at night, because you cannot go out of the refugee camp.
Yeah.
You cannot go to Bangkok to work. You cannot go back to your country because you will be executed merely because you belong to another tribe. So what do you have to hope for? Why are you in school? What's the point of learning when you can't apply this anywhere? Diba? And that was the premise of my story. And that's life changing. You see it, and you're in a jungle, a real jungle. And it's scary. Scary. Diba? So yun, I guess it's really, if it's me, I'm not Eli Buendia. I love the man. I wish I had that kind of talent to write great songs. I'm not. I don't have it. Diba? Uh, I wish I could write like Jack Kerouac. I don't write like Jack Kerouac. But the one thing I can do is try to help the poor. And that's something and other people. Teaching in the provinces right now in this pandemic is one of the best things to happen to my life, because you just see how education is off the radar in this country and how bad it is over there. And you kind of look back at the education you got and say, wow, you're lucky. So you try to pass on what you know.
Yeah.
And even in writing class, just pass, it's a blessing having guys like Jamie, Boyet Season, diba? These people in my class. No? I never thought that I would just watch Jamie, but to him and learn from me, that's a humbling experience, because, like, wow, diba? And then,
Well, it's a pleasure learning from you, and
he
I
put,
think
you know,
right.
you put your faith in me and to learn. And, so I got to bring it every single class. I got to bring it. Because you put your faith in me, and I can only hope that I can do my best in teaching, diba? So, yun. So, siguro, what if God would say something? I didn't. I hope I did my best. I hope that He would think that I did my best. I hope so. I I don't think about stuff like that. If I do, it might get to my head, and I don't want it to get to my head. I just think I'm an ordinary Joe, diba? In fact, the shorts I'm wearing are ripped shorts, and I call them mission shorts because, diba, air cool.
Well, I think Rick, when you get to heaven, I think God would have no words for you, but I think He would just embrace you in a really big hug,
Oh wow, I don't know about.
and I think that would be fantastic.
I don't know. I really
Well,
don't.
it would be nice to think of. It would be nice to dream, but just from sharing your wisdom, your passion for music, your passion for teaching, your passion for helping people. Um, I am so thankful that you made the time tonight to come on our show,
It's
and
an
I'm
honor.
also very, believe me, the honor is mine
No,
because really I'm so thankful for people like you who are very generous with their time and their talents, and the passion that you have is infectious.
thank you.
In terms of being your student, where you think you have to bring it every time we're in class, I feel the same way because a good teacher not only inspires you, not only guides you, but for me, a good teacher also is somebody that you respect so much that you don't want to let him down. And you're one of those people.
You ain't let,
And
you ain't letting me down. I'm.
well, you've seen me panicking when I had to miss a class, and I'm like, oh no, I'm missing a class. I'm not cutting class. Nagpapaalam ako kasi may kailangan akong gawin.
But
But
you were
really,
escaping in class. You not being there. Anytime someone's not there, I feel it, and But of course, I mean, it's a valid reason, diba? And I was just hoping Direct Juno would be a part of it, but I know that Direct Juno's busy with a lot of stuff right now.
yeah.
But
Well, soon
this
parang
is
parang
supposed to-
he's actually a part of it because we make him kwento about the class eh. So
oh,
we make him ingit.
but
But yes, I agree with Boyet who just posted a comment.
diba?
Boyet just posted a comment. You are such a blessing to us, Rick Olivares. And yes,
Thank you so
I
much.
I am definitely I will
You are-
back that up. I will back that up 100%. Thank you for sharing this. It's been a joy and some great memories from Craig. So yeah, Rick, we're reaching the 2 hour, way past the 2 hour mark. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for your passion. Thank you so much for your talent, and thank you so much for your generosity in sharing not only your passion with us, but your wisdom and your experience.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right, so ladies and gentlemen, Rick Olivares. I have no words. Thank you so much, Rick.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you. Good
uh,
night.
Ellie. Hi, Audrey. Hi, everyone at Offshore. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. And good job. I love what you're doing. Keep it up.
Thank you, Rick. Ladies and gentlemen, Rick Olivares. Woo,
Bye, everyone.
amazing. Amazing. See, I mean, that conversation could have. I didn't realize that we were up. We're almost like 2.5 hours. But really, I could talk to Rick forever because the stories, the cuentos, are amazing, and it really shows you the kind of thing that you can do in your life, even late in the game. I mean, he was very late in his life that he realized that he could write, and that he's actually writing now and teaching us, also me personally, how to get our thoughts on the page. And it's something I've always been interested in. It's not anything that I've ever taken a formal class of until now. And at our age, you know, if you can discover something or rediscover something that you're passionate about, um, just do your best. As Rick said, just do your best in whatever it is you want to do. So I'm so glad that he took the time to share things with us that are just so unique. And I definitely have a very long list now of musicians that I want to explore, and albums I want to download right now. So all right, just to quickly wrap this up, just a few announcements from offshore. Cebu based band Sunset is releasing their song called Mumble and that'll be out on Friday, March 19th. Also, please continue to stream the song Lonely Hearts by Suspiria Pink featuring Sab Magalona. I love these boys, Suspiria Pink. They're my, they're my new favorite discovery right now, and their attitude just shines through their music. So continue streaming them, follow them on Spotify and all the streaming platforms. And of course, Enamori's Talk Talk has a lyric video out on the Offshore YouTube music channel. And if you haven't listened to Enamori stuff, she is amazing. She is such an exciting artist, and you never know what she's going to do next. So it's always amazing to discover her new work. So make sure that's her single that's out, Talk Talk. And right now we've got a lyric video up on the Offshore Music YouTube channel. Now, just another reminder from Liquor.PH, Classic Scotch Upgrade Bundle, the best deal ever. Now, this might be the best deal to end all whiskey deals. The Classic Scotch Upgrade bundle was put together for anyone looking to level up their whiskey drinking experience with 4 fine bottles, all at a ridiculously low price. You can get 3 fine bottles, all at a ridiculously low price, with 3 classic single malts in the Oban 14, the Glenkinchie 12, and the Talisker 10, as well as the iconic blended Johnny Walker Blue Label in its Year of the Rat Special Edition. All 4 bottles are remarkable in their own right and would cost you close to like 30 grand separately. But these 4 bottles can be yours for the unheard of price of 11,500 pesos. That's a whopping 63% off. So this incredible offer is extremely limited, and it's going incredibly fast. So you want to level up on your whiskey game? Go to Liquor.PH and get the best deals. I'd like also to thank our lovely people, our lovely friends from Buenos Panaderia and the Misty Mountain Cafe. Thank you so much for always bringing me happiness in my morning experience, because really that's the best time to take your Milo buns is in the morning with a cup of coffee from the Misty Mountain Cafe. So thank you so much, and thank you to everyone who's tuned in tonight. Thank you for everyone who's been tuning in to the show. Next week is going to be exciting, and I can't wait to release the poster for that. I won't tell you who it is now, but we've got an amazing band who's guesting next week, and it's going to be so much fun. So make sure you tune in to the Offshore Music page, same bat time, same bat channel. So thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for supporting On the Rocks. I'm Jamie Wilson, and as always, I'd like to remind everyone to please stay safe, stay strong, and stay sane. Keep on rocking and keep on rolling. And if all else fails, baby, just let the music keep you going. And if your life is feeling a little shaken or stirred, a little mixed up or on the rocks, what matters most is that you take your shot. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Cheers and good night.